Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Just let me know if you can hear me okay. Please put it in the chat window or just speak up in the microphone. But when you are using the microphone and you're not talking, if you don't mind, if you could please mute your microphone. That way I'm not getting any background noise. I'd appreciate it. Good morning. My name is Bob Mullinex. I'm from Bentley Systems. I've been with Bentley now for a little over 10 years. Prior to that, I worked in the civil structural consulting industry for over 20 years. I've actually, since I've joined Bentley, I've implemented and supported ProjectWise with 16 different DOTs. I believe we have 32 DOTs using ProjectWise now, and we may be up to 35 by the end of the year. So definitely the majority of DOTs use ProjectWise. It's also quite heavily used in the E&R industry, as well as utilities, federal agencies, you name it. ProjectWise is being used just about everywhere. My goal today is to talk to you about ProjectWise. Quite a few of you, we have kind of a mixed audience today, so we have a lot of outside consultants, and we actually have some internal users as well. With these remote sessions, it's going to be very difficult to do hands-on. If you have ProjectWise already, feel free to follow along with me when I'm demonstrating. But I've been told that a number of the DOT folks don't have it yet. If you do, great. Please feel free to follow along and just kind of, take a look at the system as I'm going. If you're outside consultant and you have ProjectWise, feel free to follow along as well. How many folks, just out of curiosity, if you could put in the chat window, how many people are using ProjectWise? Say yes in the chat window if you're using ProjectWise. So we got a couple no's and no yeses. Yeah, okay, there's a yes. Pardon. So we have a mixed audience here. It looks like most of you, well, the couple of answer responses I did get were no and one yes. So we have a mixed audience here. We have some consultants that are using ProjectWise, quite a few that are not. This is normally an 8-hour training session, and we're kind of cramming it into 4 hours, so I'm probably going to go really fast. So if there's anything you want me to reiterate or review again, please just stop me, and I will review it again, and then we'll move on. Okay, so there's my contact information. I will show this again at the tail end, just so you don't necessarily need to write it down. So our goal today is to cover basically these topics. We're going to talk about ProjectWise Explorer, and what's really happening at the DOT is since 1998, the DOT has used a system called Falcon. Some of you probably, the outside consultants have used it with them when you're collaborating with them. Some of you may only used it minor, a little bit. But the DOT internally has been using this for all their engineering content management since 1998. And we're replacing that with ProjectWise. So we're in the process right now of migrating all of their Falcon data into ProjectWise. Hopefully what you're going to see today is I'm going to point out some benefits and improvements in the ProjectWise system. We're actually implementing some new features that Falcon didn't have. And you'll see, I'll compare and contrast a little bit ProjectWise Explorer to Windows Explorer and Falcon, okay? I'm going to basically, each one of these represents a PDF that has a document that you'll actually be able to download, and you'll be able to review that document on your own time as well as reference material. And each one has a workbook associated that has some exercises. When I do my demonstration, they'll be very similar to the exercises in the workbook, and that's something that you can, back in your office, you'll be able to run through those if you have any questions or concerns, okay? Just as practice. So our main goal is we're going to look at ProjectWise Explorer, and we're going to look at some of its features and some of the things it can do that Falcon can't do, as well as just how it does things similar to Falcon. We're going to talk about searching in ProjectWise. Searching in ProjectWise is going to be a lot different than it is in Falcon or Windows Explorer. Typically in Windows Explorer, you search on a keyword in the name of a file. In Falcon, you're typically searching on whatever metadata is being tracked. But I found, at least with the districts I've been working with, is that a lot of people don't enter all that metadata, so it's not necessarily reliable, and not all the data is in Falcon, so you can't necessarily find everything. ProjectWise, you're going to be able to search on literally anything, and that includes a keyword into the content. So you'll be able to do a keyword search into the DGN, into an AutoCAD file if a consultant provides an AutoCAD file. Okay, we got someone with a really loud background noise. I think it's Brian. Yep, it's Brian. So just, if you could, if you don't mind, please mute your microphone when you're not using it, and I appreciate it. Okay, so searching, you're going to be able to do searching pretty much more than you've ever been able to before. Did my sharing stop? Looks like my sharing stopped. That was weird. Can everybody see me okay? See the PowerPoint presentation? Someone could just give me a yes and make sure they could see me. It looked like my sharing had stopped. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to also talk about, so a lot of you will be microstation users, so we will talk a little bit about how microstation integrates and how microstation affects, it works within ProjectWise. One second. And then we'll also take a look at Word and Excel and how those integrate. And then we're going to look at some of the custom tools. So most of the external users do not use IPM, but we do have a handful of internal users, so we will briefly talk about IPM. Since I am external right now to the domain, I won't necessarily be able to demonstrate it completely. We will talk about the ProjectWise Web Explorer and how we can access our content from pretty much anywhere in the world with an internet browser. As long as you have internet access, you'll be able to get to your content. And that's not going to require someone creating an FTP site or someone creating the Falcon Web site. If you use ProjectWise Explorer, you will be able to get your content anywhere in the world with a secure username and password. Okay. Then we'll take a look at CAB, which is what our contractors use for downloading and uploading files. And then internally, for the VDOT folks, we will be looking at a tool called multi-print for printing your PDFs sets in full size and half size. And then lastly, we're adding some new features to your PDF generation. And this can actually be used by the outside consultants or the inside VDOT employees. So what we're doing is when you create your current drawings or your plan file room drawings, you typically have to go through a process where you create all the individual PDFs, then you put them out there for the CAD support group to put them in the appropriate place. Now in ProjectWise, you'll be able to just basically right-click them, create a PDF rendition, and it'll and you pick which profile you want, and it'll automatically create the PDF in the right folder with the right name. And we'll demonstrate that. First off, for the internal clients, VDOT users, your credentials from Falcon will automatically be moved over to ProjectWise, and you don't need to put in a SARA request for security. But the external users will not necessarily have their user accounts created automatically. So if you're an external user, make sure you go to the VDOT. So go to the CAD support webpage, and you should see this on the desktop. There'll be underneath the CAD support, there'll be a ProjectWise subpage, and in there you'll find a number of resources. You'll find some announcements for the training, but you'll also find the forms down here for requesting access to ProjectWise. So you'll want to basically fill out this form and issue it to the CAD support, requesting access, because you need to request a COV account. They're no longer using like logical. In Falcon, you use what they kind of call a logical account. ProjectWise has logical accounts as well, but for security reasons, VDOT wants everybody using domain accounts, because they want to enforce password policies, and so those domain accounts are going to enforce password policies, so they want you to change your password every 90 days. So by using domain accounts, they're going to be able to enforce those password policies. Whereas in Falcon, they weren't necessarily forcing it. They were going to have to create a custom tool to do that. In ProjectWise, they're going to basically do that with COV domain accounts. So make sure you go in here and request and fill out the appropriate forms. So I believe you need to sign the security agreement for external users. Then you need to also request access to ProjectWise, and then there's another form that requests access to a specific project. So you would request access to a specific project. Okay, so make sure you familiarize yourself with those 3 request forms. It'll be on the ProjectWise support page under CAD support, and there's the link if you'd like. I'm going to put the link in the chat window if you want to copy it out of there. Okay, so I put that in the chat window, so feel free to steal it out of the chat window. Okay, so we do have one person not having or having a hard time listening. Is there anybody else that cannot hear me? So unfortunately, Willis, I think it's just you. If you could maybe exit and come back in, or maybe join through the phone, rather than try to join the audio through the computer, join through your phone, and give that a try. So we'll keep going. So please make sure you put in that request so that you have access to ProjectWise. And then you will be put into the appropriate groups once you've put in those requests. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but I had a horrible sound in my ear there. But it went away. Okay. So let's go back and let's take a look at ProjectWise Explorer. So each one of these is a link that takes me to a PDF. And in the PDF, the first one was the ProjectWise Explorer Connect Edition. First things we're going to do is basically we're going to take a look at logging into the system. We're going to look at some of the icons. We're going to look at viewing document folders and properties, creating some folders and documents, knowledge about the document properties. We'll look at the different custom attributes and interfaces to display those attributes, and viewing those properties, and then also managing reference files. We're going to talk about something that ProjectWise does better than anybody, including Falcon. We manage microstation and AutoCAD referencing better than anybody. ProjectWise does it very, very well. As long as you're attaching everything through ProjectWise with your reference management, we manage it, I think, better than anybody on the planet. So I'll talk about that and how we separate ourselves in our reference management. So we'll take a look at the interfaces. Your accounts, if you're internal, should be set up already. If you're external, you will have to fill out those forms and put in a request for a COV domain account. and then you will be granted access to ProjectWise. So logging in, a couple things I want to talk about logging in. It's pretty basic concept, but we want to talk about are two issues related to what we call the working directory. If you're an external user, you should probably already be familiar with this. If you're an internal user, this is going to be new to you. So I have this ProjectWise icon on my desktop here. And when I double click on it, for the internal users, you'll be able to go ahead and just double click on the data source. So in the internal users, you'll see this one data source called VDOT ProjectWise. Today, I'm going to be in the training test data source. So I see two data sources. The cylinder is kind of like a drive letter, okay? External users, if you already use ProjectWise, you're going to have multiple data sources depending on how many projects you're collaborating with other folks. You may have one for your internal company. You may have one for another data source or another sub-consultant you're working with. So you could have any series or number of data sources in there. VDOT's going to typically have one, okay, and it'll be VDOT ProjectWise. Mine says VDOT Gateway because I'm coming from outside, okay? When I log in, I can right-click, log in. You'll also have a login as if you're on a domain, but since I'm external, I can't do what I call single sign-on. So internal users, you can just hit the plus or double-click on this, and it'll actually log you right in, okay? But you'll see a dialog box that looks like this the very first time you access ProjectWise. So I'm manually logging in because I'm not on a domain, and you will see this dialog box. Any new machine you go to that you've never logged into ProjectWise as will prompt you to create this. So the very first time you log in from your desktop, if you just loaded ProjectWise or just logged into this data source for the very first time, it will prompt you to create this working directory. Working directory such and such does not exist. Do you want to create it? You have to hit yes. If you hit no or cancel, you can't get into ProjectWise. Hit yes. Okay, so, and that's it. Now, so internally, you'll just be able to double click on that. It'll prompt you for the working directory, hit yes. Okay, and you're good to go. And it's created that working directory. Now that working directory, the only time you would have to recreate that working directory is if, say, say that they rebuild ProjectWise or they reinstall it, you may have to recreate it, or if they purge your working directory locally. So there are two things about the working directory I usually like to talk about. So let me go into, you can see that under the training folder, I only see, since I logged in as this user, I only see the training folder. ProjectWise, one of the beautiful things about it is we can limit what you can see based on your permissions. So this particular user only has the ability to see the training folder. And I'm going to basically work in this remote sessions Bob Mullinex folder. And I have some data in there already. And if I double click on this file, it's just going to open it up and it's going to check it out at the same time. So it pretty much works the same way as Falcon would or Windows Explorer, except it's checking out the document when I double clicked on it. Okay, so I see this red check mark. But what it did in the background is it took a copy of that file and it put it on my C drive in this temporary working directory. And I use the term temporary because it's really kind of like a temporary cache of my files. When I'm done with this file and I close it, and I save it and close it, it'll ask me to check it in. I go ahead and I check it in, but let's look at the other options that are here. Every application in ProjectWise is going to have this check-in dialog box, okay? Whether it has advanced integration or not, any file you put in the system that's been associated to an application will have this checkout, check-in process. And in the background, it's putting a copy on your C drive. But one of the things that we do that's a little bit different than Falcon and other systems is we do what we call a Delta file transfer, DFT. So in the background, say this was a 50 megabyte DGN file, okay? That's a big file to be pushing back and forth to the local area network or the wide area network, okay? So we only push the deltas, the changes in the files. So that first time I check a file out, it might take a minute if it's a really large file to get to that local working directory. Once I have it though, and I have something to compare to the server, now it's only pushing the changes back and forth. So I may only make 5 kilobytes a change. So when I check it in, it takes my change, pushes it up to the system, and it checks it back in so someone else can use it. Update server copy pushes my changes up but doesn't check it back in. Cancel doesn't check it in, doesn't update it. But free is a new concept that you have in ProjectWise you may not have had in Falcon, and you definitely don't have in Windows Explorer. Free means I don't want my changes, okay? So if I hit free, boom, it just releases it. But what if I had made changes, okay? We actually build in some user settings to kind of, so this happens a lot. It's happened to me many times over the years where I was in a hurry and I didn't think that I modified anything, so I was freeing everything because I wanted to get out of the office, and then I realized, shoot, I did work on those files for a couple hours this morning, that one file. Well, we put that in your recycle bin, so there it is in my recycle bin. So anytime, so we do kind of protect you from yourself a little bit with those free. So I always want to be careful with free, because free means it's kind of like a last-minute undo. And it's very useful if you did want to run some scenarios on a drawing or a geopack file, and then all of a sudden it corrupts the file and you don't like what it was doing. Don't check it back in. Free it. And then it basically does back to the original copy on the server. Okay? So that's one of the main reasons we, I want to talk about the working directory. And probably the biggest reason is we don't want to touch that working directory. Let the system do its thing, okay? Because we're using that DFT technology, you don't ever really want to mess around with that. You don't want to basically check out this file, minimize this, and then go figure out where that working directory is and try to edit it manually. Because what will happen if you're editing that file manually on your C drive, and ProjectWise doesn't know you're doing that, and then all of a sudden it's not checked out, somehow it was disconnected and it's not checked out, so you go over to ProjectWise and you try to decide, I'm going to check that out and see if it's updated, you just lost all your changes. Because it looks at the one on the C drive and says, hey, you're not the same as the one on the server, change the one on the C drive back to me, and you just lost all your changes. That DFT is automatic, and in a system like that, one of them has to be the master. And the one on the server is always the master, okay? So you have to be very careful. You don't ever want to interact with that folder outside the system. Let the system do its thing, okay? So right-click, check that back in. If freeing is something you're concerned about, we can disable it. But again, we kind of protect you from yourself by putting any free documents in the recycle bin, okay? Any deleted documents are also put into a recycle bin. So if you have the ability to delete a file, it goes into an internal recycle bin inside of ProjectWise. We call it a soft delete. And an administrator can actually restore it at any given time without having to go to backup tape. So we have a lot of redundancy in the system to kind of protect you from accidents. Now, one of the things you'll find out in this system like this as well, what I did here is I just hit my space bar. Anytime you highlight a folder, a project, or a file, and you hit the space bar, it brings up the properties of that object, that folder or file. And what I wanted to point out is we audit everything. So everything in the system is audited. I know who copied, I knew every single person who's ever even viewed that file. Not just modified, but viewed it. Okay? Anyone who's viewed a file will have a copy out, and you'll be able to see when they modified it, when they viewed it, who updated it, everything. Okay? And you can report on it. You can actually create a custom report of certain actions by certain users within a certain time frame, and then this is what we can report on. These are all the categories. And we can save that out as an HTML file or a CSV file, basically, and bring it into Excel and parse it out, or we can print it directly to a printer. So you can always get an audit history of what's going on with your content. So your data in ProjectWise is much, much more secure, and you're typically much more comfortable as what's happening with your data. Now, the audit trail can actually be used to track yourself as well. So at any given time, if I wanted to remember something about this document that I needed to update later, I could come in here and I could say add comment. Make sure you change page 2 intro. Okay, so now I can, anytime I want to, I can go to that audit trail and I can do a report on my comments. Okay, right there. Make sure you change page 2 intro. So there's my user comment. And I can actually do a report that just finds my user comments. So now I have a digital paper trail, but a digital trail of, comments to myself. I apologize on my voice. I've been doing this now for, this is my 3rd week running. Last 2 weeks has been on site 2 sessions a day. So inevitably, I'm going to lose my voice sooner or later. Excuse me. Okay, so the second thing about the working directory that is really important is that over time, when you're checking out documents, whether you're just double-clicking on and opening them or checking them out so no one else can actually get to the file, if you browse to this folder, you would see a padlock. Let me go into, so you notice these ones have an open book, so I can't even check those out. So I don't have permission, so I have read access. I can open those read only. But over time, I might have documents checked out from 5, 6 different projects. And over a lengthy period of time, say 6 months, all those copies are going into that working directory. So couldn't my C drive capacity get really, really full? If I have limited C drive capacity, I may want to clean that up once in a while. So we provide a tool for you that keeps track of your checkouts, keeps track of everything that's copied out in your working directory, and it keeps track of all your exports, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. So it's this little yellow file cabinet here. It's also in Tools, Local Document Organizer. I call it your buddy because it tells you what you have checked out. So I can right-click and check everything back in from one location. And it keeps me a running tally of everything that's been copied out. And so I can actually highlight. And what I would normally do is I would sort. Now, I'm going to log in as a different user in a minute, and I'll show you this again. And where this user, I just created the working directory, so it doesn't have a lot in the working directory yet. But I'd normally do a sort by fetch time. Anything over 30 days old or more, I would purge it. I would keep my most recent. And if I hit a file that's been purged, it just brings out a fresh copy when I access it. So I'm going to right-click and purge those, close it. And now I'm going to go ahead and log out and log in as this other user, and I'll give you an example of someone who has a lot of copies in there. Okay, so I'm back into the same location, but anybody notice something different? That other user only saw the training folder. This user sees the projects folder, the standards folder, the testing folder, the bridge inspection, central office, and plan file room. So this user has rights to other things. As a consultant, you're going to basically be able to see the projects folder and what district you're working with and what project you're allowed to see. You won't see all the other projects. You'll only see the ones you've been granted permissions to see. Okay. Now I'm going to stay in the training here, and I just wanted to show that organizer again. So this second button in is all my copies for this user. few more than that last user, okay? So my C drive could be filling up, and I may want to grab all these files and purge them. Once a month, once every couple of months, whatever, if you have plenty of hard drive space, you may forget to purge them at all, as long as you have plenty of hard drive space, okay? So just remember this organizer tool is kind of your buddy. It lets you know what's going on. So if I hit that little yellow file cabinet, shows me my checkouts, shows me my copies, and shows me my exports. It also shows you workspaces, but we're not going to talk about that too much today. But ProjectWise can manage your microstation workspaces. And so that means if I access a DGN, so this is really important for the outside consultants, is that right now, if you want to use the VDOT microstation workspace, you basically install that proj folder either on your C drive or repoint it to a network resource. Well, in ProjectWise, once we implement the managed workspace, which we haven't yet, but I am working on it, that was not a part of the original rollout, but we are going to be implementing a managed workspace. So when I access a DGN, so let's go to the folder here. I have a DGN in here. If I double click on this DGN, it'll automatically cache out the cell libraries, DGN libraries, any of the standards related to VDOT. So that very first time, it might take a minute because it caches out the workspace. But then after that, it's just pushing the deltas. So if they change the cell library, boom, you get it automatically. They change the line style resource, boom, you get it automatically. So they can dynamically update their workspace, and you don't have to download and manage their workspace all the time. ProjectWise will be managing the workspace and its updates. That's what we call a managed workspace. So that's coming soon, but we just want to get them moved over first into ProjectWise, and then we'll be adding some of these bells and whistles. Okay, so that's pretty much it about the working directory. You want to make sure you purge your copies, and you want to make sure you don't really touch that working directory. Let the system do its thing, okay? Other thing, probably just a best practice, if you're someone who deals with large raster imagery or large point cloud data, those could be anywhere from 10, 20 gigabytes to a couple hundred gigabytes at a point cloud. Don't purge those. You don't want to have to wait another 15, 20 minutes for that to copy out to your working directory. But what's the beautiful thing about that is most people who use those types of files, they want them on their C drive because it's just quicker. They don't want it on the network drive. And that's exactly what ProjectWise is doing. It's just that very first time, it has to cache it out. Once it's there, raster images and point clouds don't change very often. So don't purge those. Just when you're picking everything, just make sure you don't pick that. And then that way you don't have to recache it out. We actually also stream raster imagery and point clouds. This is something that most of our competitors don't do either, is that in microstation, if you have a raster image in your last save view and you're zoomed in down on a portion of the raster image, we only tile out that portion of the image. And as you zoom out or pan around, we tile out the rest of the image in 5 megabyte chunks. Okay, so we actually stream it. We do the same with point cloud. So if you have a pod file attached to your microstation file, and as you zoom around the point cloud, it streams it out. Okay, so, but normally what I'll do when I'm dealing with large files, let's say this microstation file has a large image on it, or a raster, it has a bunch of attachments, and one of it's a raster image or a point cloud. I'll actually right-click that file, and because it has references, and I'll say copy out. And then I know that's going to take 10, 15 minutes to copy out. So I go get my coffee, I set up my meetings for the morning, whatever it is, and then I kind of pre-plan my wait time for that file. Once it's there, now I'm just double-clicking, checking in and checking out really quick because it's only pushing the deltas back and forth. So it's just kind of a way to pre-plan your checkout if you have a slow network. And what you're going to find, like today, just for comparison, as I'm adding files here and checking in and checking out, I'm in a basement office in Michigan. Okay, all of this data is in Richmond right now. Okay, and you should see relatively quick performance. Okay, until around noon time or a little bit before noon, when my company starts running my virus scan on my machine. I always have to catch that. because they push that out on a regular basis, and it slows me down. But no one in your organization does that, right? They don't push anything out in the middle of the day. I'm sure they do. And then they run updates and things like that. But anyways, so when I right-click checkout, it just physically copied that to my local drive. Same thing with this DGN. So now that DGN is my local C drive. Now those were relatively quick because they were already in my working directory. Okay, let's go to one that I haven't copied out yet. So let's find something in one of these other projects. Check that one out. That was pretty quick too. And these are this is actually an existing project that was migrated. This one, see a little tree symbol on it? It has references. So what had just happened in the background is it actually checked out this one, but it also copied out all its references. Real quickly, if I wanted to see what was referenced, I'd have to open up MicroStation in Falcon or Windows Explorer, not in ProjectWise. ProjectWise, I could right-click it and say Set, Show References, and it's going to show me what's referenced. So in that wait process, it was also copying out that survey drawing. Okay, let's find one that has a little bit more files. Let's see what this one has. So that has a bunch of files. Let's copy that one out. Right-click, check out. So there were 9 files. That's pretty quick. I'm pretty sure I haven't accessed these ones. There's only 1 file in here that I've accessed, or that I've been using. Actually 3 that I've been using for printing purposes. But I have not been checking out these files. So again, that's pretty quick, right? I can also right-click and check these back in right from there, or I can go to my organizer tool and check them back in, because I didn't actually open any of them. I just checked them out. And I'm going to check them back in, and it's just pushing the deltas, and there are no changes, so it's just double checking each one of them. So we'll come back to that. So let's take a look at the 3 different main areas of ProjectWise Explorer. You have what we call the data source and folder view. That's this one over here, number 1. Then we have the document view, or the document list. You hear me call this the view number 2 over here in the top right. And then the preview pane, number 3. So let's take a look at those live. So this is your data source list and your folder list. And in here we have the data sources. Kind of think of that like a drive letter, on my server. VDOT is going to have 1 data source. It's going to be this one, VDOT ProjectWise. There actually are more data sources in VDOT. The other one is what they call a sensitive data, and you won't even see that data source unless you put in a SARA request and ask to have access. And all of these sensitive data projects like bridges and roads will be stored in that data source. And you won't even be able to see the data source unless you've been granted permissions to see it. And you won't be able to log into it unless you have been given permission to log in to see the sensitive data projects. So as of right now, most of the outside consultants and the VDOT internally will only see the 1 data source. Outside consultants, you'll see the VDOT data source and any other data source you might have if you're using ProjectWise on other projects. So anywhere I see a folder, it's a folder. Anywhere I see a folder that has a little ProjectWise logo, that's a project. So if we look at one of these that has project properties, if I hit my space bar, it's a hotkey, I can go to my properties. We're tracking all of the project properties. Something that's a little bit different than Falcon is we don't track the properties just on the documents. We track them on, so 70–80% of your attributes related to a project or files are project specific. Okay, they're all the same UPC number, they're all the same project number, the same project description, the same project manager, the same city county number, same route. So why put those on individual documents? We put it on the project. Any file or folder that goes in there inherits those. Okay, so we minimize having to apply attributes to every single document. Okay, and then we get specific on the individual document attributes Things like sheet title stuff, like drawn by, checked by, approved by, those are unique to an individual drawing or an individual document. So we'll have separate document attributes for those. So we're streamlining how your attribution and how you apply metadata. So these are called projects, or in the new version, they're called work areas. You guys will, right now, the version that VDOT has deployed it's still called these projects, but the version I have right now is one version above. It refers to them as work areas. And when you go to the Connect Edition 3.0, they're going to be now called work areas. This one is what we call a connected project, or now a ProjectWise project in the cloud. It's connected to the cloud services. And then we will briefly look at that, but we're not going to get into that because I can spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours on each one of our cloud services as well. Those will be follow-up sessions as we start to roll out some of the cloud services. Again, those are some of the bells and whistles. Our initial go through here, we just want to get you moved over to ProjectWise, okay? Now, anywhere we see a binocular, that's a save search or a search folder. So underneath here, you can see I have personal ones and global ones. Global ones are ones that everybody can see. Personal ones only I see. A project also has its own searches, global and personal. So a project or work area will also have binoculars underneath it. And that's a way you can save a search criteria, and you can repeat that over and over, like it's a personal folder. So we already have some built in that everybody's going to be able to see. Is the cab. The way we deal with cab is we create a search that finds the packages or the sets of drawings and the proposals and stuff in cab. So when I run, and you'll see a list of all of the submittals. So this is the plan set and the proposal. And so you'll see a list of all the UPC numbers under cab. Under IPM, same thing. You'll see a list of all of the UPC numbers for IPM. So you don't even really have to go to the website to get to that content. It'll be in your saved searches. And so you could just go down to your saved searches to get to that once you have access to ProjectWise. We also have one for smart scale projects. So that's something internally that they keep track of. So it'll list out all the current smart scale projects. Okay, so those are just some that are going to be built in. Okay, so that's your folder list and your data source list. So let's go look at how about your preview pane. So the preview pane can be turned on or off. So I can do view and I could say turn it off. So if you don't like seeing that preview pane, go right ahead and turn it off, but I'm going to show you that it has quite a bit of value. So let's go back to PowerPoint here, or PDF. So we're going to look at the preview pane and look at some of the aspects. So let's start out with some microstation content. So let's actually go back to that one. We thumbnail everything. So when I do a view thumbnail, we actually thumbnail all your microstation content, and we thumbnail PDFs, TIFFs, JPEGs, GIFs, all your standard image formats, PowerPoint. So pretty much all your standard image formats. But a lot of times that thumbnail is not, I can't really quite tell. Yeah, that looks like a plan sheet. That looks like a plan and profile sheet. That looks like a detail sheet, things like that. So we can basically see the basic there, but we may not be able to see everything, right? Now, in the thumbnail here, everybody should see that certain microstation files are just the thumbnail, or just the thumbnail. Some of them have this little tree symbol on it, okay? That little tree symbol means that it has references. And if I go back to my details list, it also has a little tree symbol there on the icon. That represents that it has references, okay? And we can see those references a couple ways. The first way I had already showed you is that I can right-click it, and I can go to Set, Show References. But I can do more than just show the references here. So now I see that it has a bunch of references. I can right-click it And I could also, these ones in here, I can open up the folder to see where that reference is coming from. I can show markups if I'm tracking markups, and I can also say reference by. So let's pretend that I need to delete this because someone has a file in there called Bob's Surface file, and that's not supposed to be in there because it's not following the standard naming convention. So I need to find out who's been using this. So I go referenced by, and I want to see everything that's referencing this particular file. This is without going into microstation. And actually in microstation, it's not really easy to find out what's referencing this. So that tells me everything that's referencing that. And then I see, okay, well, I know that that Bob is working on the hydraulics file, or maybe Scott, I can't remember who it is. I can right click and I can go to the properties or hit my space bar and I can see who last modified it. So it looks like Scott's been working on it, and then Teresa as well. And then I just accessed it. So Teresa just was the last one to work on it before me. So I'm going to right click it and say send to mail recipient as a link. And it's going to open up Outlook with a hyperlink to it. And I can say, hey, Teresa, why are you referencing this file? It's not following the right naming convention. I've never opened up MicroStation. And better yet, oh, we do need that file, but it's not named properly. So I right click it and I rename it right here. Can't do that in Falcon. Can't do that in Windows Explorer. You can do it, but what do? You break the references. So all of those files that are referencing it break. In ProjectWise, not the case. In ProjectWise, it's self-healing. It just heals itself. If you move it or rename it, it never breaks the links, as long as you've attached through ProjectWise or you've done what we call a reference scan to fix it when you bring it into ProjectWise. Almost all the other systems on the planet are not self-healing. You have to rescan it if you move it or rename it. Okay, not ProjectWise. ProjectWise just heals itself. So it gives me a tremendous amount of flexibility when it comes to reference management. I don't have to go into MicroStation to figure out what's attached, and I can go as deep as I want. Okay, so that leads us into the preview pane. So we're on this drawing. I see the document properties. I can actually change what I'm viewing here. That just changes what properties on the document are displayed. That same view is up here. That view controls my column headings. Okay? So you can see I'm not looking at, like in Windows Explorer, I'd see name, date modified, type, and size. Falcon, I don't think they really have column headings. They have kind of an interface on the right that shows you what metadata is associated to a file. Well, we do that too. That's just basically my space bar. That's my properties dialog. Shows me my custom attributes, any additional attributes, any file properties, audit trail, workspace, and spatial. We can actually spatially locate everything. So you can actually geo-coordinate any of your files. We will actually be implementing that this summer. It's there, and it has a basic Virginia map. And you can spatially locate things if you want to. But this summer, they're hiring 4 summer help to basically geo-coordinate all historical plan file room data. So you will be able to spatially query any historical project data in the state. And any new projects will also be geo-coordinated from this point on once they have that established. Okay, so now you will be able to actually spatially search and find your data. So each project will be a geo-coordinated, basically the extents of the project. So you're going to be able to have a lot of flexibility in that by just geo-coordinating your content. And if you see that up here, you see we've been looking at the list, but you have a spatial tab too. And if I've spatially located it, it'll show up as a polygon or a line or a point, depending on how I've located it. Okay, so a lot of information, a lot of things you can't do in Falcon, can't do in Windows Explorer. So let's go back down to here. And what was I? I was on this one, I believe. Yep. So I have my project properties or my work area properties, my folder properties, I said that I was going to talk about the cloud services a little bit, and we're just going to briefly. Each user, yours might give you an error saying you're not logged into the portal. I'm logged into the portal. This is connect.bentley.com. Because I'm logged into my Connect client, this allows me to go out to my portal. And in my portal, I can have connected projects. And in those connected projects, I can use the connected services. So I have one here. I'm working with Consumers Energy. It was just a test project with Consumers Energy. And this is going to show me my team members. It's going to show me the project-related data, the description, and it's going to show me my services. The very first cloud service we're going to implement at VDOT is deliverables management. So if we have any bridge contractors or consultants or structural folks, the first one we're going to be implementing is shop drawings for the bridge. And deliverables management is going to allow you to basically use that to track all your submittals, transmittals, deliverables, and you'll be able to actually track the metadata on it through the dashboards. You'll be able to do metrics, current status of the deliverable, who's responded, who hasn't responded, like over 90 days type things. And you'll also be able to track any of the project properties. So so a percent complete, current status of a document, stuff like that. We also have issues resolution, field data management. Those are all mobile applications for setting up and creating issues. So like on my phone, I have my iPhone in my hand right now. I could snap a picture, open up issues resolution with this directly right now, assign an issue, and attach a picture to it, say we need to address this site condition. The issue can be created inside or outside on your mobile device as well. Field data management is basically inspection forms, field inspection, bridge inspection, daily reports inspection, site condition inspection, whatever it might be. There are digital forms that can be used on iPads, small iPad, large format iPads, laptops, smartphones, and you can fill out those reports in the field and they synchronize with your project. You also have Project Share, which is kind of like a project Dropbox. So you don't necessarily have to have full-blown ProjectWise. You could go to this portal just through any web browser, and you could upload and download content into this Share, this Dropbox. Okay, that's your portal. If you're not in the Connect client, you won't be able to see this. Now, what you can see right now is photo preview. We photo preview. Now, the outside consultants, you may not see this properly, okay? It all depends on how your ProjectWise was installed. We configured VDOT so that they could preview the DGNs. So let me maximize here for a second and fit it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So here, right, I can zoom in and out, I can rotate, and I can pan. That's about it. But you also notice the reference files are not there, okay? The photo preview only views the active DGN. Now, we can also photo preview all the standard image formats, TIFFs, JPEGs, GIFs, Word, Excel, PDFs, all of that. But I want to talk about the microstation first. So this doesn't help me too much if I have a lot of references. But we have a tool right next to them called Navigator. And again, a lot of organizations I work with who use ProjectWise now, they're not using this, okay? Now, it looks like some of my references were turned off here. See how I can turn some of them on. So some of them got turned off in this particular file. But see, I can turn on and off references. And you can see I can also turn on and off levels. So it looks like a lot of that stuff is turned off, okay? Or it wasn't active or it wasn't scanned properly, okay? But like you said, you can turn on and off references here. You can rotate, pan, zoom in and out, fit. You can even measure distances. So let me come in here and measure a distance. And I'm just looking for the average width here, and that's actually supposed to be 20 feet. So I could actually right-click, print that, and it's going to print WYSIWYG. So whatever printer I want, so whatever it sees, and I walk over to the designer and say, hey, I thought that this was going to be 20 feet. Why is it just under 17? We need to make sure that our minimum width is 20 feet there. Now I'm getting talking paper, and I'm getting quick feedback. I don't have to have microstation on my machine. All I need is ProjectWise. Okay, so it, it that quick feedback is there's you can't place a value on that. I didn't have to go talk to someone who had microstation or someone who had Bentley Navigator or Bentley View. I can just quickly view the DGN, get a number off of it so that I can talk to the engineer about something. Okay, and I don't have to worry about someone else doing it. So a non-CAD user can see this content, and they just have to have read access. They don't have to have modify or change rights, right? And they can get a quick dimension without having to go in the field, without having to go to someone who has microstation. Now, if you want full-blown markup capabilities, you want to request Bentley Navigator, okay? Even for the outside users, if you don't already have Bentley Navigator and you're using ProjectWise, you should have Bentley Navigator. Bentley Navigator is part of your ProjectWise licensing. It doesn't cost additional money, and it allows you to mark up DGNs and DWGs. If you have the SS6 version. If you have the Connect version, it wants everything to be an iModel. And we're not even going to get into iModels right now, but iModels are kind of like really smart PDFs, okay, with intelligent metadata and smart 3D PDFs where I can query all my objects. So think of an iModel as a very intelligent PDF that's mobile and works well on mobile devices. So can do a lot of stuff here, right? Let's look at the rest of the tabs here. Dependency viewer, something none of our competitors do when it comes to reference management. We actually diagram it out for you. And we provide some tools for you to analyze what's going on. So I could actually, that was one of the drawings I was talking about. I could right click it and I could say, show me everything that I affect. And it'll color code it. Okay, or show everything that affects me. So imagine if you have some of those nested references or self-references, it's going to show all those references. And you could have 5, 10 references deep here. I've seen some dependency maps that are incredible, just like a spider web. So this tool becomes invaluable for troubleshooting reference issues. I can actually filter out applications, the depth that I want to see, any dependencies, and then also any blocks or cyclical referencing relationships, and I can actually do a search on the filter. You can view them to the left, to the right, top, bottom, and you can copy it out of here and create a report of it. And I'll just paste it in WordPad. So I have an instant report of my dependency map. So we manage references really, really well. Okay. Oh, we got something in the chat. Okay. You can also see the security. It's access control. You won't be able to modify it, but you'll be able to see who has rights. And if you have deliverables management, you'll have a deliverables management tab here. Most of you won't have that installed just yet, because if you're not set up through the Connect client, it'll give you an error if you have that, because it'll want you to constantly log into the cloud services and connect. So that we have not installed that just yet for you guys. I have it, but I'm logged into the Connect client, so I don't get that error. Okay? So that's our preview pane. That's dependency viewer, photo preview. Let's look at the document list. Just quick so that you guys can see it. I'll also show some TIFF images in the photo preview. We actually thumbnail all the TIFF images as well. So you can see that I thumbnail all of those. See the thumbnail down here, and I see it in the photo preview. And you can zoom in and out and pan. rotate as well. Okay. So we view all of the standard image formats as well as Word, Excel, and Power PDFs and PowerPoint. Okay. So let's go back to my detail list and let's look at the document list here. So let me go back to my test training folder here. These column headings are used in two places. They're used down here in my view. That defines my column headings, and it's used up here. If you do not see these pull downs when you get first log in, make sure you turn them on. Okay. The interface shows me the properties of my document. It shows it in a certain interface. So that's professional services. That's capital outlay. This is design. So it's showing different sets of metadata in my interface. The view is just showing the metadata in the column headings. Okay. And in ProjectWise, the column headings are more than just a way to sort my data. Okay. I can actually use my column headings as a way to report on my data. Okay. So I'm set to the bridge. If you don't have these turned on, when you get back to your office or you log into ProjectWise, turn them on, because that's how I'm kind of decipher what information I'm looking at. You can just by right-clicking this gray area and toggle it on or off. That's it. You can also go up to here, View Toolbars, and toggle it on or off here. Either way. But make sure you turn those on. Okay. So how do you create those, and why would I want to create them? Well, maybe the built-in ones. There's actually supposed to be 4. I have to talk to CAD support, but yesterday someone deleted one of them. And this is the test environment, so I'm not worried about it. If we go to the production environment, there should be 4 of them, and this Falcon one is not there. This one was just for migration testing. There should be 4 VDOT ones: VDOT Bridge, VDOT Default, and VDOT Design, and VDOT Email. Now, what I think they did is they got rid of the default one, and they left the design, and someone accidentally deleted the design one in here and not the default one. But I have to check with them. Again, that's something an administrator would be able to do. You can actually create your own views, though. These will be the built-in ones. There'll be 3 or 4 of them that say start with VDOT, and those may be perfectly acceptable. You don't need any other view. Okay. But maybe I'm traffic and I want to see a different set of metadata in my view. And again, really not that necessarily that important, depending on what I'm looking for. Okay. So you can sort documents by just hitting the column, sort ascending and descending. You can also sort by multiple categories. So I could sort by the name, then sort by who it's checked out to, then sort by maybe the bridge number, hit OK. And you can see the criteria. That's the first criteria, the little caret there. That's the second criteria, the 2 carets, and then the 3 carets. And then as soon as I sort again, it refreshes that. You can sort very similar to the way you sort in Excel. So if you did want to see different metadata across there for either reporting purposes or just because you want to sort, say, on sheet number, or you want to sort by drawn by, checked by, approved by, things like that, you can create your own. You can go into View, Manage Views, and you can give it a name. So hit New, give it a name. I'm just going to put my initials, and you pick your environment. So in the VDOT environment, there's a bunch in there, but those are for what we call lookup tables. The only one you care about in VDOT is VDOT. You have 5 categories here: basic, folder, file properties, VDOT, and work area or project properties. Okay. And as I expand these, if I highlight something, I can hit the green arrow and add it over. I can't check the box there. It actually doesn't let me, but I can double click on it, and it also adds it to the right. If I don't want it, I hit the green arrow back or double click on it back. Okay. And the top to bottom is left to right in the view. So let's add a couple here. I'm going to add out to, and I like to have that usually in my first couple columns, so I know right away who has something checked out. Maybe I'm using workflows, so I'm using states. I'm using versioning, so I'm going to add a version. Folder columns, I usually don't add too much, maybe the folder name, but usually I won't add too much unless I'm trying to track the folder name or location. File properties are all your Windows-based file properties, so name, date modified, type and size, things like that came from Windows. When I brought these files in, we migrated these files in as we're migrating these. Right now, just so you know, we've migrated Culpeper, Stanton, Salem, Lynchburg, and Bristol. Have all been migrated. And next week we're doing Hampton Road. Week after that we're doing Richmond and the central headquarters. And then I believe it's Nova and then Fredericksburg. So we're a little bit over halfway done with the migration. So there will be a transition. We'll still have some data in Falcon, some in ProjectWise until we get that completed. But anyways, one of the number one things that people ask me in file properties is usually under summary here is the original date created when it was created in Windows, or maybe it was created in Falcon. But we're actually tracking the Falcon create date. So in the custom environments, we have Falcon create date and created by. Okay, so we have all of the custom attributes. So maybe I want to track up in the left corner, right, we have the subsurface utility by, the surveyed by, the design by, and the project manager on the title block. And then in the projects, we of course want to track UPC number, maybe the route, the district. Okay, and I'm just double clicking on these and adding them. Hit OK and close. And I see my view up here. And I changed it to my view of my metadata. Now let's look at that in a project where it has some metadata. So there we go. So I can sort by title block information, the UPC number, the route number, the district. And these can be moved around too for individual users. Okay. Now, what I mean by reporting, does anybody ever want to be able to create a list of all the documents in your folder? Or maybe how about a list of all the documents and what the current status of them are? So if current status is one of my attributes, I could have that in there, and I literally can hold my shift button down, highlight everything in here, right click it, say copy list to tab separated or space separated, either way. Open up Excel. We open up a new file and paste it in with the column headings. So you have an instant report of the current status of whatever I put in my column headings. Okay. So you just beef that up a little bit. Can't do that out of Windows or Falcon, can you? So now I have an instant report that I can submit to someone with the current statuses of all the documents, everything, all the title block information that was entered, and I have an instant report of the current status of whatever it is, whether it's microstation. Oh, someone is calling someone. Can everybody hear that? Someone was. I'm hearing a phone ringing. If you could, if you hear this, please mute your phone. Can't tell where that's coming from. Sorry about that. I don't know if you guys could hear that or if it was just me, but there was a big phone ringing in the background there, and I couldn't hear anything. Um, so let's keep going. So let's go ahead. I'm going to close this. Minimize that one. So we can create an instant report right out of our view. Okay. Again, the way you do that is view, manage views, and I can create a new one. If I wanted to modify the existing one, I would just highlight it and modify and add or remove as needed. Okay. Okay. So that's creating a view. So that document list and that view is very useful for identifying, what kind of metadata I want to track, and I can report on it. So let's look at some of the icons. So a cylinder is just a data source. Think of that as a drive letter or a map drive. One with a green check mark means it's active and I'm logged into it. Outside consultants, you may have multiple data sources, so you may see this third one where you're in the VDOT one, but you're also in another one, and whatever one's active or not, this one is I'm logged in with a little squiggly line, but it's not active. So you're logged into it, but you may not be actually active in it. A folder's a folder. A folder with that ProjectWise logo is a ProjectWise project or work area. Anywhere you see binoculars or a folder with binoculars represents a search or a save search. Okay. Custom folders, we're not using those in the VDOT environment. Maybe the outside consultants are using them in yours, but in VDOT they have custom folders turned off. Okay, so we're not going to talk about those. Let's look at these icons here. And let me move this over so we can take a look at these. So a pencil indicates that these are kind of like visual cues. They tell me what kind of access I have. So if I see a pencil, that means I have write access. If I see an open book, that means I have read access. That could mean that I don't have permissions, or it could also mean that it's a version. You can version files, and you'll see that in a couple minutes here when I create some content. A padlock means it's locked out. That means someone has it checked out. So I just go over to my out to column, or I can go to the properties of that. So let me check something out here. If I go to the properties by hitting my space bar or right-clicking and going to properties, I'll see that who it's checked out here, who it was created by, when it was checked out, how long it's checked out. So you're always, at any given time, you know who has it checked out. A diskette is what we call an export. I'm going to talk about these other two first, and then we'll talk about export. The check mark, red check mark, indicates I have it checked out. Okay, and the blue bag tag is what we call set final status. Okay, so let's talk about final status and export. So an export would be kind of what a long-term checkout. So when I checked this out, right, it went into that temporary working directory. And I told you earlier, first thing we want to remember about that is don't ever modify it or interact with it outside of ProjectWise. So how do I get to content that I actually want to take off the system temporarily? We don't want you to check it out and go find it in the working directory. What we do is, if you really have to take data with you in the field where you're not going to have reliable internet access or something, and you want to make sure that the system knows you have it, you can export it, okay? And you can export it to a known location that you choose. So it's kind of like a checkout, like a detached checkout, or a long-term checkout. So let's say that I want to take these two files with me in the field. So rather than check them out and work in this temporary working directory, which we really shouldn't do that, I'm going to right-click it and export it. And I have two types of exports. The first one, it actually locks the files so that it lets me re-import them later, and everybody knows I have them. Okay. This one just says, send a copy of these files outside the system, and I don't care what happens to them. It's kind of an unmanaged, detached copy, but always remember that concept with a document management system is you want to have a concept of one original. If I'm making copies of a file, I'm always running the risk of using the wrong information. So you want to try and keep one original if possible. I know that there are extenuating circumstances where you have to have duplication. But when you do that, it's a manual process to merge them back in, and you're running the risk of someone using a slightly different version that has something noted different or is looking different. So you're always running the risk when you duplicate it. But ProjectWise can help you maintain that one original, because one of the first things I told you this morning is that we want to optimize your access to your data, okay? So as soon as I put it in ProjectWise, it literally is available to me anywhere in the world, including my phone that I'm holding in my hand right now. So all of this content in here, I can get to it from my phone. I have a Word and Excel viewer and a PDF viewer on my phone, okay? I can get to it from an iPad if I have a viewer. So you have that accessibility to your data, so why do I need to duplicate it? So in the export process, the top one here is I can go ahead and I created this documents export location on my C drive. I can add a comment if I want, or any previous comment I may have added, I can just pick off my list. Hit next. What it's doing is it's checking it out basically, but it's what we call a export checkout. And it put a little diskette there representing that I've exported it. If you went to it, you would see a padlock, just like it's a checkout, okay? Now I can close ProjectWise, and I can browse to that folder. That's on my C drive under Documents, Export. And there they are. And I can go ahead and edit them. So let's pretend I'm off the network and I'm in the field and I edit those. Everybody back in ProjectWise in the office sees that I have them. I can open the ones that are on the server open read only, and I can still look at those and see where that was, but I'm not seeing your changes until you get back on the system. Now say you're back on the system now, you can come back here, highlight them, and re-import them. Or if you exported things from multiple locations, you could go to your organizer tool, that little yellow file cabinet. The third button in was exports. And I can highlight these and import them back. If I happen to have moved the files because I wasn't really thinking and I moved them, I won't be able to do an import because I moved them. But you can import from a different location. So just go to where you moved them to, okay? So just highlight them and import, and it uses the DAT. So it only takes the delta, pushes that up, imports them, and it releases them, okay? And out on the Windows Explorer, they're gone. It keeps that one original. It cleans up after itself. So it doesn't work like the working directory. The working directory right now leaves a copy behind because we told it to, so we have something so we can speed up our process. The export cleans up after itself because it wants one original. It doesn't want to keep a copy, in the other location, because now then I have duplicates and I can keep working on it when it's checked back in and other people are working on the other original. We don't want that. We don't want to have varying paths. We want to have one original if possible, okay? Hearing a little bit of background noise. I don't know if you could just make sure you mute your phone. That'd be appreciated. Okay. Next. So we have the little blue bag tag. This is something that I use a lot, but really anytime you have an occasion to lock a file down because you don't want someone to modify it, maybe a project's been put on hold, you don't want anybody modifying it, you can actually highlight the documents and you can right-click it and go to Change State, Set Final Status. Add a comment if you'd like, and then it just puts these little blue bag tags. It's another form of a read-only file. The difference with this is literally no one can modify it in this state, okay? So if I double-click on this, it's always going to open up read-only, period, even an administrator. But an administrator can release final status so that you can modify it again. Users will be able to set final status but not remove final status. And you would only do that if you don't want anybody to touch that file for some reason, whether it's you lost funding, whether the project was put on hold, maybe it's a delivered file from someone outside that you don't want anybody turning levels on and off, or editing anything inadvertently. because you want it in its original pristine state. Maybe it's the final. You know, the project is final. We don't want anybody modifying because it's final. You set final status. Or in some cases, I used to use final status for my standards because my standards editors, people that I considered administrators, sometimes they were users too, and they inadvertently modified standard details and plans. One time in particular was extremely embarrassing. We issued 4 DOT projects with missing details in the standard plans because the guy who had elevated rights on the standards accidentally cut details out of the standard plans and pasted them in a local county job instead of copy, and he wasn't paying attention. So the process, I changed it so that rather than take away his rights, I just said when you're done editing them and updating them from the MDOT, make sure you set final status so you don't inadvertently do that when you're going in and out of those files. Administrators have elevated rights. They can have, they can cause problems sometimes too. So you just got to be careful. That one was particularly embarrassing because we were the ones who created the standards for them. So can you imagine issuing 4 DOT projects with missing details on the standards that you gave them? Yeah, it was a little embarrassing. Okay, so final status is something that's useful. So right click. An administrator, though, can come in and remove it. So just don't use it unless you're willing to pick up the phone or issue a help ticket with CAD support to release it. Okay? Next, the white icon with lines in it's just a default icon. White without unassociated is just an unassociated icon. Red pencil really doesn't exist anymore. And the microstation with little tree symbol, we already talked about it. Same thing with AutoCAD with little tree symbol. We manage references better than anybody. I personally think we manage references better than Autodesk. I used to support Vault, and I used to support the Autodesk products, and they cannot manage microstation and AutoCAD the way we do. I was a user for over 20 years before I joined Bentley. So we manage reference files really, really well. Now this 2-ring binder is what we call a flat set. We're not going to talk about that too much, except for that the icon's wrong. They need to change the book. That would be like if I wanted, say I wanted to, these 3 files I work on at the same time all the time. I could highlight them and I could say set, new set, and let's say I'm going to call it BCM checkout set. And all it is a list of those files. We're actually using this in the CAD process. The files that outside consultants and contractors will use to download is a set. So maybe I forgot one, so I can just drag that in there. And that set is actually this little color-coded tab icon. And let me open up my preview pane here. So it's this little color-coded tab icon. And all I can really do with this is check it out, download it, check it back in. So it's just a way to group them together, to export them. You can also use this set to right-click, create renditions. And I'm going to talk about that at the tail end, where I can actually create, say that was my current drawing set, and I could just hit submit, and it'll create the PDFs, put them in current drawings, and name them properly. All I do is pick the profile and hit a go, and hit submit. Don't have to open up MicroStation, and I can use a set to do that, to group them, rather than pick them all individually. So that's the only reason I want to show you set, because it's useful to group things together and perform actions on them all at once. So we looked at the creating views. Let's create some folders and some documents. And then we will take a break at plus or minus 10 o'clock, somewhere in there. So let's look at creating some folders. Then we'll create some documents. We already talked about checking in and out, and then we'll look at resolving some conflicts. So let's do this. So under my Bob Mullinex folder, if I want to create a new folder, I can just right-click the folder where I want it to go, the parent folder, and say New Folder. You will not be able to create a project or a work area. Only administrators can do that. But underneath the project where you have permissions, you will be able to create a folder. So you hit New Folder, give it a name. I'm going to call this one Civil. And I'm going to say All Civil Data. So one of the things I always find ironic with all the DOTs I work with, I think I mentioned I've worked with 16 DOTs since I joined Bentley, but prior to that I worked with Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Florida, Pennsylvania, doing DOT work in a private E&R firm. So I'm intimately familiar with the workflow, also intimately familiar with all the CAD standards that they typically follow. And all of them are a little different, but they're very similar. Most DOTs are obsessed with typically their job number, or in this case, the UPC number, and every folder in your structure is basically the UPC number, okay, with a couple letters here and there that designate what it is. But what I always find funny is that in Falcon, you guys had the ability to use descriptions, but yet most of the data we've been migrating does not have descriptions. So you don't use them. Why not use them? So I can say, so when someone's not quite sure what that subfolder was created for, if it was in the description that says these types of files belong in here, or I put these types of files. These are Bob's example files that I'm using something for. It only takes me 5 seconds to add a description, Anything in there is searchable. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and I just gave it a name and a description called Civil. But let's take a quick look at the structure. So let's go to the node, that same project I've been going to. So I have a UPC number, and then I have one letter designation that tells me what's in it. And if I go to the properties of this folder, no description. This was migrated from Falcon. D. So D stands for design. It's pretty self-explanatory. H is hydraulics. R is right-of-way, I think. But R is not always right-of-way in every DOT. S is not always survey. Sometimes it's structures. L is for landscape here. I've seen L for lighting at other DOTs. But what gets me is that I use 6 characters for a number that already exists here. And it's also in every single file. Okay, so it's kind of hard not to know that file came from that UPC number. Well, in ProjectWise, all I really need is the number up here. And I need to have it, if I have it in the properties right there, I don't need to even have it in the name. So there's a lot of redundancy. And that's okay, that's fine. But it'd be nice if I had a description that says that design files go here. So when I'm a new employee, I don't have to go look at a standards CAD manual to figure out where things go. I just look at the description of the folder, okay? Because in ProjectWise, you can list the descriptions instead of the number or the name. And so wouldn't it be nice to look, instead of looking at 100 UPC numbers, here you're looking at I-81 from station here to here, or bridge whatever, rather than the UPC number. So you can display your descriptions. So in the new template, in new standards, here's the new templates. Let's look at Bristol. We actually are adding the descriptions, so you can see it here. So you will have descriptions. So geopack, design data, proposal data, bridge files, design files. So you'll have that, okay, in your descriptions in the projects. But any subfolders, please add descriptions, because it's searchable and it just lets people know what's going on. It only takes you a few seconds to add a description. Again, right-click, new folder. I'm going to create one called specifications. I'm going to say all spec data. I don't need to pick environment and storage because it pretty much inherits the parent folder. And yours will always be VDOT environment in this data source. and the storage will be whatever district you're coming from. Okay? So how about dragging and dropping a folder? So out in Windows, I have some sample data, and I have this design folder. If I'm highlighted on the folder I want it to go, I can just basically drag it to the white space right here, or I can drag it to the folder, either way, and let go. Right click or left click, it's always going to be a copy into ProjectWise. It will never be a move. Okay? We do not remove anything from Windows Explorer. Something that's a little bit different in ProjectWise is that we offer you some options here. We don't have to worry about the environment storage. It should inherit the parent folder. But we could actually say just include the files. So take an entire folder structure and merge them all into a single folder. I've actually always wanted to be able to do that in Windows Explorer because I'm getting rid of an old folder structure and I want to go into a new folder structure, and I don't want to have to do it one folder at a time. And I don't want to necessarily create a custom routine to do it. So it would have been nice to be able to do this. So I could just say include just the files. And if there are duplicates, rename the duplicates in the subfolders. In this case, I'm just going to include the subdirectories. Hit OK, brings in the design folder and all the files. Pretty simple, right? What about dragging, dropping out? If I drag that civil folder out now, it actually looks like it's letting me. But when I let it go, what it's done is it's created a shortcut. It didn't actually pull the folders out. That's not how I get data out of ProjectWise. Getting it in is easy. It's a relational database. Getting it out is a little more difficult. You have to right-click and export, which I showed you, and I just do a send to folder. And then I send it outside wherever I want. Tell it to create the subfolders if I want. Just read the prompts, and I can export it outside the system just as fast as dragging and dropping. Okay? How about individual files? So under specifications, I have a corresponding specification. And the reason I'm following these particular examples is because the workbooks of the PDFs that I'm going to show you where you can download those once you're in ProjectWise have some exercises that follow a similar pattern. And it has this data set. So I have a specifications folder out here that has 4 documents. So let's take a look at those. And before I do that, change something. We'll come back to what that is, and I'll explain it. So I take this drainage file and just drag it in. And I hit no wizard. That's what most people are going to do. Okay, when I'm dragging and dropping files in. I'm basically making that, so I would drag that in, no wizard, make that my default. But I want to explain what the advanced wizard is. We're not going to really talk about interplot organizers. Some of the outside consultants, maybe you're using that. That is something we will be adding to VDOT, but it's basically kind of like print organizer in microstation, but it's print organizer for everything. You can use it for Word, Excel, TIFFs, JPEGs, microstation, AutoCAD. You can use it as a printing tool to create PDFs and hard copy if you're using the interplot server. So you can do basically PDF printing and hard copy printing, and you can do single multi-ship PDFs or sheets or individual PDFs without opening up Adobe Acrobat, Bluebeam, MicroStation, Word, Excel, any of that. You can just bring them all in, put them in order, and submit them to PDF. That's Interplot Organizer. That's a part of your ProjectWise licensing. So what most people will do is they'll use the no wizard, okay? But I want to show you all the options. Now, how do you create files now in MicroStation, Word, or Excel, right? You basically go into Word and say File New, pick a template, save it, okay? Same thing in MicroStation. File New, pick a seed file, save it. You're going to do the same thing in ProjectWise, except instead of going to a drive letter, you're going into ProjectWise, okay? But there is a good reason to use the No Wizard Advanced Wizard. The Advanced Wizard has really two main reasons.
Bother you?
Oh, yep, someone's audio's on.
No.
1 second, please.
What are you doing now? That webinar thing. I thought it was yesterday. Today. Mine was yesterday.
Can everybody hear me? Someone has their audio on and they're talking in the background. If you could mute your microphone, that would be greatly appreciated. I had this set up to auto mute, but once someone unmutes it, I can't control it. Okay. Hopefully that's better. So a couple concepts I want to talk about when they're creating documents. That first one is we want to typically use the No Wizard, but let's look at the Advanced Wizard real quick. So if I right-click, drag it in, and let's hit the Advanced Wizard. There's two main reasons to use the Advanced Wizard. Welcome to the Wizard. Do you want it there? Yeah. Do you want to use that as your template? Yep, but you could browse to a different file. Now I can populate metadata. That's the main reason, is populate metadata. Okay. Add additional metadata. If I drag, I can give it an initial version name. But here I can, if I grab multiple files, I could say apply those settings to the next one so that it goes through the wizard only once. If I don't do that, it's going to, so no matter how, if I brought 10 files in, it would go through this wizard 10 times. That's kind of painful, okay? So what I usually suggest to people is if you're the main reason to use the wizard is to add properties or attributes while you're creating the file, okay? But there are other ways to add attributes and properties. But if you're going to do that, you could also go into the wizard manager here, and you can hit its properties, and you could skip a couple of these things. I really don't need the introductory page and the target and template, and I don't need the completion page. So once I do that, grab another one, go to Advanced Wizard, it immediately goes to the attribute page. Now I can populate the ones that are gray, those are coming from the project, so they're automatically populating. The route number, the city county number section, as long as you're using your project properties, it's adding that metadata automatically. The other ones are ones that I'm adding, that I may potentially synchronize into the border. So it's things like the scale factor, okay? Additional attributes. So pretty straightforward, right? So what I'm normally suggest to people is they drag this in, No Wizard, make it my default. Then it doesn't prompt me anymore. Then I come here, and if I want to modify all the attributes at once, I highlight them all, and I right-click and I do a modify. And I modify any of the common attributes right here at once on everything, okay? And if I need to modify individual attributes, I just go to the properties of that individual document. I modify the attributes, save it, go to the next one. Modify the attributes, save it, go to the next one. Much quicker, okay? But the last reason you'd want the wizard, the Advanced Wizard, is when we implement document coding, which we are going to probably implement, they have a standard naming convention, okay? And that standard naming convention has the UPC in it, right? Well, guess what? It's a project property. So wouldn't it be nice if we just went in and we said right-click, new document, and we use new Advanced Wizard, and it automatically, I pick my seed file, from either inside of ProjectWise, or I can still go outside to the workspace on the local drive. I pick my seed file, and when I go to the attributes, it's a series of drop-down lists. So this is a design file, so it puts the D in there, automatically pulls in the UPC number, then the subdiscipline and all that, and you just pick those, and it concatenates it into the file name. That's what we call document coding. and then you have a generate next sheet number, and it generates the next sheet number. So it automatically names it and generates the next sheet number available. So you can use the advanced wizard to automate your file naming. And we will be doing that in VDOT, but they haven't implemented it just yet. That wasn't a part of the first go-around. Again, the first go-around is just to get them in the system first, okay? So you can use that advanced wizard for the document coding. You'll see that coming hopefully soon with their standard naming conventions. How about duplication of files that exist already? So I bring the vegetation in. Didn't ask me for the wizard or no wizard because I made that my default. But I can't overwrite. So same thing in Falcon, you can't overwrite either. But in Windows, you can. We don't want you to, because that's not just a Word document anymore. It's an intelligent record in the database. And this is actually the number one reason, not the number one, but this is one of the reasons why references get messed up in ProjectWise. If that was a DGN, and I was taking a DGN outside that had 5 or 6 references and trying to replace one inside, well, the one outside it wasn't repaired and fixed by ProjectWise. So it will prompt you and say the references need to be reset if you're going to replace this. And we don't replace it. What we do is we version it. So if I hit version, give it a version name, what it's done is it's taken the one that's there and it's made it read-only, and it's replaced it with the one outside. So now I have a record of what was there. Okay? If I don't need the version, I can delete it. That's pretty much all you can do with a version, is delete it. You can promote it back to the original, but it'll leave that version there, and it'll version the one that's there. So it keeps a digital trail of the replacement, okay? And that's a locked-in time copy of that when I replaced it. Now, I could also create it. I don't have to drag and drop a file over it to version, and I could just right-click it and say New Version and give it a name. Say this is version 2. Hit OK, and all that did is it took the one that's there and made a read-only copy of it. If I delete the original, it deletes all of them. It'll tell me all versions will be deleted. Are you sure you want to do this? If I hit yes, it deletes all of them. Okay, so it treats these like they're one record. So that's what a version. Okay, and you can do a version of a file at any time. As a matter of fact, you can do a version of the file when you're checking in. Let me open up one of these. So I just double-clicked on this, opened it up. When I close it, it'll prompt me to check it in, but if I wanted to, I could create another version. Say version 3, check in. So it took the one that was there, versioned it, and it replaced it with my new changes. So you can keep a running tally of your versions just in your check-in as well. Okay? One last thing, and then we will take a break. So I also want to point out that keep in mind, a lot of people will ask me a question when I say new, why does it have new document and multiple document? So you can create a new microstation file without going into microstation or Word, just by new document. And you can come down here and you can say import, so import the seed file. Or you could replace, grab it from somewhere inside. So, and you can basically insert that. But what this is, when I create this, it's what we call an abstract document. It doesn't have anything associated to it. If I double click on it, it doesn't have any file associated, but it does have metadata. Okay, so it inherited the project metadata. So I use this quite a bit in my organization to track everything, not just the digital records, but the physical paper records as well. My PDF plan sets, if I went to the properties of it, it had an interface that said distribution list. And that told me where the hard copy plans were in the field, what contractors had them, what inspectors had them. And if I had to issue an addendum, I just looked at the PDF set, and it had the distribution list as a set of properties. Okay, so I always knew who had the hard copies as well, just by looking at the digital record. Okay, how about flat files? Your surveyors have hundreds of thousands of maps, quarter sections, sections, maps and stuff like that. Well, my surveyors, they had stuff from late 1800s. It was on cloth and it was deteriorating, so they really couldn't pull it out of the drawers anymore. So we scanned all of it, we indexed it, and so now when they went to that, they could go to that record and they would actually see where it was physically located in the flat file, and then there was a PDF, so they could just print it out again. Okay, but we originally did that by coming in here and creating new multiple documents. We said 10 documents, or several hundred, or thousands actually. And then as they scanned them, they just inserted them into the record. They went in import, and they imported the scan right into the record. It inherited the region it was coming from, so it knew what quarter section, section, township, and range it was coming from, so they didn't have to populate that metadata. We did that with all letters that came in as well. They went straight to the file room, and the engineer would only get an email with a hyperlink to the PDF, and one of his interfaces was where it was located in the file room. So they never saw, so important letters always went straight to the file room. They never went to your desk to get lost. So just think of anything that you use in volume, you can use ProjectWise to manage it. Just about anything. One of my colleagues who's doing the Nova session, he's only doing the Nova week, he's from Chrysler, and they used it to track all of their robotics parts on their assembly line. Saved millions of dollars in retooling costs by just inventorying the robotics parts and the condition of the robotics parts and whether they were available. So when they retooled for each year's models, they just started shipping the robotics parts around to each factory rather than ordering new ones, just by inventorying them in ProjectWise. Very cool that you can use it to basically manage anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a break. If you're okay, just 10-minute break till the top of the hour, and then we'll get started back up at 10 o'clock. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat window, and I can answer them during the break. I'm going to go on mute and just step away for 1 second, and I'll answer the question when I get back. We didn't talk about copying the paths, but let's take a quick look at that. So at any given time, you can copy the path of a file or a folder right out of here, out of the address bar. You can actually copy it, or you can copy a URL or a URN. If it's a URL, if the file moves or changes or the folder changes, the link breaks. If it's a URN, it stays. It honors that link. So you can actually, if you use a URN in your hyperlinks, you can move the content and it still honors that link. Okay, so you want to typically always use a URN. Now, there are some issues with VDOT right now when it comes to links, and that is you guys went to Gmail. So the VDOT folks that are on the call, we integrate really, really well with Outlook, but we don't integrate with Gmail. But I actually last night, I've been saying this all week, that we built some custom tools for Gmail to work for some other DOTs, because I'm aware of 2 other DOTs that use Gmail. And you know, it's kind of a love-hate relationship with Gmail. If you're using Gmail, that you should have a job aid in your portal that shows you how you can link your Gmail to Outlook. And then if you use Outlook, all those hyperlinks will work in the email. But I also added in my ProjectWise, and I'm going to be talking to your CAD support folks to add it to the install for everybody, is that if you're using Gmail, and even the outside consultants, if you need to email something to someone, you may want to consider installing this tool as well. So we may have to make it a part of the VDOT install, is that if I was to email these 2 files to someone, I would just right-click and say send to mail recipient as a link, and it'll work through Outlook. But it doesn't work through Gmail. But we have a tool that I can provide you called Copy Gmail Links to Clipboard. And when I copy that and open up an email, author a new email, I can paste that in there. And that will work in Gmail, that link. Okay? It was specifically designed to work with Gmail. Okay? So you guys won't see it right now because it was something we developed for other clients. Um, but I'm going to be working with them to get it added to the install because we just found out that you guys were going to Gmail a couple weeks ago. We didn't even know that. And immediately, hey guys, we don't integrate with Gmail. But we did happen to create some custom tools that work for copying links. Okay. So we'll make sure that we get those added so that you have at least that ability to copy links. But if you're not dealing with Gmail, you're an outside consultant, you're just dealing with Outlook, you can copy right out of here, right out of the address bar. Okay. We talked about exporting, importing documents, and we looked at the properties, attributes, looked at the interface, and the audit trail. I think we got everything pretty much covered here. Yep, so we're done with this one, and let's go to searching. So searching, very, very powerful tool in ProjectWise. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage you to search more. Everybody probably does a little bit of searching each day, and it's typically in Windows Explorer, it's a keyword on the name of a file, or if it's in Falcon, it may be on some of the metadata you're tracking in their little interface on the right in DocMan. In ProjectWise, you're going to be able to literally search on anything. Not only will you be able to search inside of ProjectWise Explorer, but you can actually search in the web client as well. I'm going to demonstrate the web client at the tail end, right before lunch. And that web client has full, what we call quick search and advanced search capabilities through the web client. So I can actually do that on my phone. I have an iPhone. I used to have a Microsoft phone, works on both of them. I've actually done it on, tested it on my wife's Android phone as well. Works on any mobile device. So very powerful searching capabilities in ProjectWise. There are 3 types of searching that you can do in ProjectWise, or what we call the quick search, and then we have 2 advanced searches, search by form and search builder. And basically, searching is to locate documents, right? Well, in ProjectWise, it's more of an interactive process as well, is that we can create searches and series of search folders, and we can use those folders to work in. And then if someone creates a document that meets my criteria, it automatically shows up in my folder. So I don't necessarily have to go into that detailed folder structure. I could actually just go into a folder I created that finds, the 10 files per project I work on in one single folder. And I can sort by UPC number if I wanted to. Here are just 10 things to kind of keep in mind when you're searching. Some of you probably already use wildcards, so you may like search for star.dgn. I would suggest in the ProjectWise searching, always use wildcards. So if I was looking for the word site, I'm going to put star, site, star. Anything before, anything after. Quick searches, that's our first search we're going to look at. It's not case sensitive, so it doesn't really care about up or lower. Quick searches are much more than just a Google search. They can be a lot more, and it can search into a lot more content that you could search into before. The search form is used for creating detailed searches, and those detailed searches in the search by form or search builder can be started from a folder, so you can actually tell it where to start from. By default, quick search always searches what you're last highlighted on. Search by form and search builder always search the whole data source by default. So you may not want to search the whole data source once we have millions of documents in there. You may want to narrow it down to a certain folder or a certain district or something like that. So you can start those searches from a folder. In the search builder and search by form, you can actually save your searches so you can recall them over and over again. In quick search, it kind of saves the searches, but it only saves the last 100 that you've basically ran. And then as you go to 101, it clears it out, and it just keeps the most recent search criteria that you set. And you have a mechanism to purge that out of there too. You can create special views, those column headings, right, that I can apply to the search so that it displays certain metadata or properties. I can go right to a document from a search by just right-clicking and saying open folder. And I can also export and create reports or email links from a search to a file. And I can remember I just showed you a little while ago, I can export out that whole list with the column headings into an Excel report. You can do the same thing out of a search. So rather than talk through this, I'm going to actually show it to you live. So the quick search is up at the top, but the quick search is also in my file opens for my integrated apps like Word and Excel and PowerPoint and MicroStation and Geopack and OpenRoads. I'll have a search in the open dialog boxes in my integrated applications as well. Okay. Again, remember, always use wildcards. And then we'll take a look at some of the search settings. And then we'll take a look at the advanced search. So let's take a look at that. So my search dialog box is this right up here. And you actually saw me run that star.tiff earlier. That was the last search. You can see that I see my last 100 searches in my recent results here. Couple things. There's really three things you want to kind of remember when you're searching for something. So like, let me use that example, site. So I hit the word site, and I just put the word site in. Just because I found some results, but I would have anticipated more than that, okay? And the reason I only got this was because I was highlighted down here in my civil folder. Pick up a little higher, rerun it, okay? Now I'm going to find a bunch of things with the word site, okay? So it depends on, so always pay attention where you're highlighted with a quick search. Also, always pay attention what your search type is. See, right now it's set to full text, so it's not searching across everything. If I put it on this one, it's going to find even less, just the folder, because that one's only looking for folder and certain document properties and folders. It has limited. These three are built in. If I hit all content, now it's going to find even more. Okay, so it depends on which search type you have. Now, second thing you want to pay attention to is that still didn't find everything. It only found one folder with the word site in it. But if I used a wildcard, now it finds some other folders that have site in it. So it depends on if it's at the beginning, the end. So if you get in the habit of using wildcards, you're going to typically find a little bit more. Okay, but sometimes that's too much as well. So you want to limit it. So you may want to narrow it down because now it's too much. But I could always go like, and I'm just looking for PDF files. So I say and. You can use and, or, not, between, greater than, less than. But notice it found all the PDFs, okay, that have the word site. But it also found folders with the word site or properties with the word site in it that have PDFs in it. So again, probably a little still too much. But now I can look at this real quick and I say, well, yeah, I was looking for the 172 ones. So I just add another and. So and star 172 star. I can keep adding and this and that. I can use or. So now it found all of the PDFs that have the word site. Not anybody notice site's not in the name here. It's in the content. Okay, we index everything. So I'm looking for the word site in the name, the properties, and inside the content. And I'm looking for 172. Notice 172 is not in the name of this one. It is in these ones, but it's inside the content. So it could be a route, a number, right? It could be a district name, a project manager's name, a client's name, a city street, you know, the route number, a station. It can be anything, and I'll show you an example with station here in a minute. So within a matter of seconds, you can typically narrow down your search pretty quick by just learning some basic techniques. Now, what if I did want to just search just the name? I wanted to really narrow it down because I use a certain naming convention, and I'm looking for the M501, and I don't want to find it in the content. I just want to find it in the name. Well, that's not that easily done with these three. So I can go to my settings. Here, this is where you control if it starts from the folder or the whole data source. This is, you control your history, you can clear your history. But here's my 3 categories and what they search across. So if I'm curious of what they're searching, all contents, everything. Full text is everything but environment attributes. Documented folders is everything but environment, full text, and project properties. Okay. What if I want to just search name? I create my own. I create a new search type, and I'll just say just name. Okay. Hit OK. And then I'll just make sure that the only thing that's turned on over here is name. So now, when I come over here and run one of these searches, say I'm looking for the word site in just the name. So I found all of the documents that have the word site in the name. Okay? And it actually found some abstract documents. Interesting. Oh, sorry. I just didn't follow my own rule. Why did I find more than just the name? Because I didn't change my search type to just name. It was set to all content still. So pay attention. You got to pay attention to my own suggestions. So now I just found the word site. Now, if I tried to narrow it down to just the PDFs and did startup PDF, it's going to give me an error because startup PDF is, when it talks about name, it's not including the extension. So it can't find that because it's violating the just name credentials, okay? So I would have to change my search type for that search to be valid, okay? So just kind of pay attention to where you're at, what search type, and whether or not you're using wildcards. If not, just put a word in there. And more than likely, we're going to find it. But more than likely, we're going to find probably too much because you didn't narrow it down. Okay. Anything you can think of now in ProjectWise, you could find in your quick search. I mean, literally anything. Any piece of text. Okay. This could be just as easily DGN. We actually do keyword search into the DGNs. So the word site doesn't have to be in the name. It's in the drawing. Okay. Can't do that in Falcon. Can't do that in Windows Explorer. You can do the keyword search into the AutoCAD content as well. So it's very powerful in being able to find content. Okay. So that's a quick search. We'll look at the quick search briefly again when we look at the Office integration and microstation integration. Advanced search. Advanced search, we have 2 of them. There's what we call search by form and search builder. And so rather than read through these, I'm going to actually demonstrate it. And we'll look at the different categories. Anywhere I see binoculars represents a search or a saved search. So let me maximize this. So right up here, search by form. This is your search by form. Most people tend to use the search, if they're not using quick search, they use the search by form because it's typically just easier. All it is your properties dialog box with preset form. Here's your default, here's your custom, and that's controlled by the interface. I want capital outlay, do I want plan file room, do I want professional services, do I want project design, or title block. So I can just fill in a field here and hit go. So I'm looking for, let's look at, I'm looking for the archive, the division, the route number, the city county number, the section, the architect's, the engineer's name, the district, the city county, units of measure. Any more attributes? These are all the attributes that didn't make it on the first pane, all the leftover attributes. You need Windows file properties, full text into the content. So specifically looking inside the content. And then spatially. Once we've spatially located content, we can now spatially query the content. And we could say, in the general tab, find all PDFs in this region of the state for this district, or for this county, or this route, or that this person was a project manager on. Can't quite do that in Falcon or Windows Explorer, can you? So most people, if they're not using the quick search, they're using search by form because it's just relatively easy. Okay, so let's actually perform some searches. By default, if I just pick there, I'll usually set my search by form as my default. So I can call it up here, either one, and we'll show Builder in a second. Or I can come over to here and say, right-click, Advanced Search, and it'll open it up and it'll start from there. So it's just creating a starting point. It's going to search from projects only. More than likely, that's probably what you want to do if I'm looking for project data, is I only want to look in the projects, but maybe I'm only looking for something in Bristol. So I could start the search from here. If I start the search from up here, it's always going to assume this whole data source. So let's make a simple search. Let's just say I want all PDF files, specifically PDF. I'm not looking for anything in the name, and I'm not looking for star.pdf. I'm looking for anything that's associated to Adobe or PDF. Hit apply. So I found all the PDFs in the test system, okay? And I like that, so I'm going to save it down here in the right. Do a save as, and I can save that in a project, or I can save it out at the root under global. That means everybody can see it. Personal, only I see it. I'm going to do it in my personal one, all VDOT PDF files. Obviously, in the production system, this would be a gigantic search. It would be hundreds of thousands of PDFs. Hit save. Let's try something else. Let's, under the custom attributes, let's look for city county number 074. And let's apply that. So I found all the PDFs associated, and now it's not looking in the name, even though some of these have that in the name. It's looking for anything that has that attribute defined. Okay? So those have been associated to city county number 074. So I like that. And I'm going to make this a child search underneath this one. And I'm going to say all VDOT city. So I've just created that search. And if I look over here in my searches, you can see that they're here. All PDFs, all VDOT city county 74. And I could add any other criteria I want. You can also do and or, and you can keep compounding that and add different criteria for the same category. Any file properties, let's do full text. So I'm looking for, I see that some of these are cross sections based on the name. So I'm looking for ones that are for Oaklawn. So that was one of the roads that I knew I had some cross sections on that are in that particular city county. And I apply that. So what this is doing is it's finding the word Oaklawn in the cross sections. But you know what? I want to even narrow it down even farther. So that's all of them. And I could, if I have it in my column headings, I can go over and I can see these are all coming from the same UPC number. Well, I want just station 50. And this could be a range too. So I could say station 50 through something. And let's apply that. So now I found just one PDF. Can you do that in Falcon or Windows Explorer? So I was looking for all the PDFs in a certain city county that had, and it was on Oaklawn station 50. I knew that it was going to be station 50 or station 50 to 100. You can't do that in Windows Explorer. You can't do that in Falcon. Okay? I can narrow it down that quick, and then I can save it. So I'm just going to say station 50, Oaklawn. Okay. Now, why, so try to think of what you would save it for. So tomorrow, when I'm working, I don't have to go up into the project. So think I could create a search. I used to have a search that would find everything that I modified in the last 30 days. And I may have job number up here, and I just sort by job number. And I would have all of the projects that I've been working on in 30 days in one window. Project A, Project B, C in one window by just sorting by project number. Okay. Then I could have a sub-search that finds all the DGNs I'm working on, or finds all the PDFs or Word documents I'm working on. So I can do it any way I want to. It's up to you. So I'm just looking for station. I've been working on, maybe I pick a range. I've been working from station 50 to 100 or 50 to 200. So I create a search that finds all the DGNs in that station between those stations, and that's what I'm working on. Okay, and I don't have to go up to the folder because I'm an outside consultant and I'm working on 10 different projects potentially. So I find a search that finds what I need when I need it, and I work out of there. The only time I go up to the folder structure is when I need to save a new document. So think about all the reports you might need across a bunch of different projects, all of the specifications, special provisions, details, calculations, anything that you need in bulk across multiple projects. Why not create a search that finds all of them? And then you just sort by UPC, okay? So it becomes, I can use these searches, and if I'm not sure where this is coming from, I just right-click and say Open Folder, and it takes me up to the folder. Yep, that's in the current drawings under that project, okay? And if we open that up, you can see that down here, pan here, it says basically Oaklawn down here in the, Oaklawn Boulevard, and then it has the stations. And the one PDF I found was station 50. I just picked up a different one, but it had station 50 to, I can't remember which one. We index everything. You put it in the system, it gets indexed. Okay, so now there is literally nothing you can't search on. So sometimes it may be a little overwhelming because you can find too much, but you can see that you can narrow down a search in your quick search or in your search by form pretty quickly. Okay, so let's try the search builder. Search builder, although most people tend to use search by form because it's just simpler, search by form only searches on document attributes and properties. Search builder can search on anything, but it's a little more complicated. There is no preset form. You have to kind of build your criteria, add it, test it, add more. So let's, I want to look for a project property specifically, and I want to look for district. So I pick VDOT district, and it'll be a drop down. You don't have to manually enter it, so you don't have to worry about spelling it wrong or anything. I want to look for all the projects associated to Richmond, okay? But this might be all of the Richmond projects where I'm identified as the project manager, or someone else that I work for is the project manager. And I pick Richmond, add that criteria, apply it, and it finds all the projects that have been associated to the Richmond district, okay? But I'm also working in Salem, so I want that as well. So I could do and or, and I could say pick the same thing, district, and again, I could add more criteria like who's the project manager, narrow it down even more, because that may find hundreds of projects potentially. And I'm going to pick Salem, and I'm going to add that criteria. So I have Richmond and Salem. Apply it. It adds a couple more. And I have a save as. So I'm going to say under my personal here, all Richmond and Salem projects. Oops, spelled that wrong. And there it is. Okay. And just like you can create a shortcut to your folders, you can create a shortcut to your searches too. Just drag that out of here, put it on your desktop. Double click on it. It'll actually open up ProjectWise, log in, take you straight to the search and run it just by dragging out that search. So searching is a lot more than just creating a quick search like a Google search or doing a custom search into a custom form. We can actually save it and interact with those. So let's go back to the ones here. Maybe I needed these ones and I just wanted a report on all the cross sections. I wanted to see the current status of them, what their UPC number was, stuff like that. And I grab them, right click, send to, or copy list to tab separated, and open up Excel. Remember, I did this earlier. I like to show this multiple times because people forget about it a lot. Do a new, pick it, paste it in with the column headings, all of my cross sections for that particular city county number, what the route number is, what district it is, and any of the other valuable information that's added. Okay? Can't do that out of Windows Explorer or Falcon. So I get an instant report of my data. I also wanted to mention, there were a couple of people I saw during the break that I'm trying to note everybody. There's an R, K, and K. If you could put in the chat window who you are, so I make sure that you guys get credit. And then Barton. I didn't see a Barton on here either. So if you could put your full name in the chat window, that way I can make sure you guys get full credit. You'd also put your email. That would be appreciated as well. Okay, let's keep going. So that's your search builder. So we can define our searches, save them, recall them over and over again. You don't have to use any of that. A lot of people will just use the quick search. But I would challenge anybody. I've been supporting ProjectWise now for over 18 years in production and with Bentley. And if someone came to me and says, well, I just can't find something in ProjectWise, I'll usually scratch my head and I'm like, well, it's pretty easy. And it's just because they haven't got comfortable with the searching tools. And I said, well, what are you looking for? Just give me one, two, couple criteria. And within seconds, I find it. It's not very hard. What you'll also find, unfortunately, in an organization as large as the DOT, is you'll find a lot of duplicates. Okay, you'll start to weed out that and realize, man, I can't believe that we had that many copies of that PDF. Okay, that it gets pretty crazy. I've had some DOTs where I found the same detail hundreds of times, and you can tell that most of them are not copies of each other. They're like redrawn and they look slightly different, but they're basically of the same thing. So we didn't leverage our existing information. We just redid it. You know, special soil erosions, detail or a guardrail detail. It's something that is pretty common, and I see hundreds of different versions of the same thing. So we clearly didn't leverage our existing content. We just redrew it because we didn't know it existed. Okay, so we tend to do a lot of redo. Most organizations do. Okay, we can print the results, right? We can copy it straight to a printer, or we can copy it to Excel, and then we can export them as well. Okay, so let's look at the next category. MicroStation. If you're not a MicroStation user, feel free to take a break, but this will only take about 10, 15 minutes for the MicroStation portion. Then we're going to talk about Word and Excel and the Office integration, and then we'll wrap up with the remainder. And maybe we can get you out of here a few minutes before lunch. So let's take a look at MicroStation. Everything about MicroStation is integrated with ProjectWise, literally everything. It is by far the tightest integrated application that exists when it comes to ProjectWise. It's basically in its DNA. Um, we we have a corporate mandate that everything is supposed to, all of our products are supposed to integrate with our platform products. Our CAD platform is MicroStation. Our content management platform is ProjectWise. Um, and so they integrate with each other very well. Now, with the VDOT organization right now, they're going to want you to open up MicroStation a certain way. Now, outside consultants, you could probably open it up either way. Either go through the icon on your desktop, or you can double-click on a file in ProjectWise. But the VDOT folks, they want you to go through ProjectWise. Don't use the icon on your desktop because it's going to redirect you to that local workspace that actually turns off the integration of ProjectWise. Once we go to a fully managed workspace, then it really won't matter which way you go. But right now, and there's actually a job aid that I'm going to show you the job aids out there that explains how they want you to launch MicroStation. Consultants, if you follow the same technique, that's fine, because I have no idea what your icons are going to take you. If you have different standards, you may have multiple icons that go to multiple standards on your desktop. So you may want to go through the ProjectWise as well, but it really depends on how you're configured. So we'll take a look at that. We'll look at the integrated commands, look at creating a MicroStation document, and then opening and saving as, things like that. And we'll just take a look at some of the integrated dialog boxes. And we'll talk a little bit about referencing and where the tendencies are of breaking reference files if that does happen. And then we'll also look at the integrated dialog boxes, look at a couple commands that we do add through the interface, and then we'll take a look at title block integration as well. So let's jump into MicroStation. So I'm going to go ahead and on ProjectWise here, let's go up to that training folder of mine. I added in the civil folder, right, I added some DGNs by just dragging and dropping them in here. These were not reference scans, so the references are broken. I have not scanned them and fixed them yet. So I'm just going to double click on one of them. It's going to check it out and open it up. Anytime you're on this little splash screen here, that's not waiting for ProjectWise. That's actually querying the license. And one of the things I've noticed in VDOT is that is excessively long. So something seems to be throttling your query to the license server. Sometimes it'll be a little bit long for me as well. That wasn't too bad. But I know at VDOT, it's double or triple that time, and sometimes quadruple. Now, once you're in there, you're usually pretty good. You can bounce in and out. And I'm in a basement office using a Comcast cable modem, basically, with nothing special with the speed, my upload and download times. Everything about MicroStation is integrated. I mean, so anywhere I have a call to open, save as, so if I open, it wants to go to ProjectWise. Okay. So one of the stories I love to share here is related to the quick search. So see, MicroStation Open has a quick search, and I could key in a word here, and it would search depending on what search type I make. So if I had all content right, and I keyed in the word site, it would do the exact same search that it did in ProjectWise. Okay. You can also go to Search Builder here, not search by form, but Search Builder. But I had a CAD tech one time. She happened to have MicroStation open and had this dialog open while I was talking to her. And she had a huge stack of markups on her desk, and they were bloody red. This was going to take her hundreds of man hours to do these markups. And I was just kind of teasing her. I just hired her. She's a new engineer right out of college, and she was going through the paces to learn the CAD platform, learn the design software. Then she would move into design. So she was learning the ropes. And I was kind of teasing her, saying that kind of sucks to be you. That's going to take a long time, but it's good practice. And but then I started looking at the plans, and someone went down into the flat file room because these didn't get destroyed, and they should have, and got all the original ink on Mylar uh, standard plans and details for MDOT. But just a little while ago, I told you a story that I had created those for them, and I had a user that copied out I had already converted those to microstation 5 years prior, okay? And so this was a learning experience in my mind with her. She's very technically savvy, but she right away not using the tools. So what I told her, I said, I want you to, from now on, anytime you're drawing something from scratch, and it looks like something that probably should be already done, always assume that. And so I literally had her key in the word guardrail. Okay? Oh, don't find anything. Why is that? Because I'm not high enough up. Go up higher. I'll rerun the search. And it will find the word guardrail into the DGN. Okay? And all she had to do was come in here and start thumbing through, because we do thumbnails. And over here on the right, oh, hey, that looks like a detail. Let's open that up. Hey, that's that one right here. That one that's on the top. Literally, in a matter of seconds, I found the details by using the search. Now, I knew where they were because I was the one who created them, okay? But she didn't. She's brand new to the company. The engineer who marked them up and spent 40 hours marking them up to use them on a county job, that's 40 hours wasted because they were going to use them on a county job because he asked the wrong person. He sent them to the flat file room that should have been destroyed because we shouldn't have needed them ever again, but some people are pack rats and they like to keep everything. I'm one of them. I like to keep everything too. I tend to keep things digitally now more than I do paper. But the whole point was that was going to take hundreds of man hours, and if I had stopped her and caught her a week or two later, I would have been very upset, okay, because we weren't using our technology. And I wouldn't have been upset with her. She didn't know any better. But from that point on, she should have known better. It just so happened that the person who marked them up was actually an old friend of mine who had just started working at the company as well. We actually played college football together. And I had just lectured him about this. And maybe I shouldn't have used that term. I mean, I grew up with him playing Little League baseball, and maybe you don't listen to your friends as well as you should sometimes. So I took the roll of plants and I whacked him upside the head with it to prove my point. But I have a long history with him. I'm allowed to do that. That's called a sign of affection. But he wasted 40 hours, okay, and he shouldn't have. And he should have asked me, or he should have listened to me a couple of weeks prior. Use your technology. More than likely, someone's already done it. You can only design roads so many different ways, okay? Someone's probably already done something similar. And one of my favorite sayings, especially in programming and software, is best code is stolen code, okay? Why start from scratch? There's so much sample code out there. There's so much sample details and standard plans and stuff like that. Use what you've done. Leverage what you've done, okay? And that was just in the microstation open. That microstation open saved hundreds of man hours because they leveraged something that already existed, okay? Everything is integrated. If I go to my reference dialog box, you notice that some of these are broken. If I double click on them, I can browse. It wants to go to ProjectWise. The microstation integration, it wants to go to ProjectWise. Go to that training folder, go to my remote sessions, Bob Mullinex, and go find the design file. Or run the reference scanning tool. We're going to have follow-up sessions for advanced training on how to do reference scanning. Right now, all the data that's being migrated, the CAD support group is reference scanning it before you start working on it. So any existing stuff from Falcon is getting scanned and fixed. Okay? We honor reference exchange, so you can bounce in and out. You can activate the file, modify it, and inactivate it. Okay? We honor all of that. Make sure, this is the number one reason. I already told you one reason how you break files if you overwrite a DGN. This is the number one reason. Someone hits attach, And instead of browsing into ProjectWise and attaching what they want to attach, they hit cancel, and this is the normal outside attach. And they happen to see the file they're looking for right there. What that's doing, if you look at this path here, it's going to my temporary working directory. So I've just manually attached it to a copy of that file that's in my working directory. You never want to be in that second menu. Always want to be in the first one, and you're attaching properly. If you hit cancel, now I'm attaching to a file that's outside. Okay, and ProjectWise doesn't manage that. You can still attach things from outside, but if you move or rename them, they're broken, just like they would in Falcon or Windows. So you always want to be in that first menu for anything you do. You want to be in ProjectWise, because then I can move and rename anything anywhere I want. That's probably one of the #1 reasons references get broken. The third reason is someone didn't scan it right. They didn't know what they were doing when they scanned it, and they improperly attached to the wrong files or didn't find the ones that they were supposed to attach. Okay, so the only thing we add in the menu that's new or different is these two commands here. So I go ahead and I have my references and say I'm working in the topography file, and you don't see my changes because I'm saving them to my local C drive. You don't see those until I check in, right? Well, you don't have to check the file in and check it back out for them to see the change. All I have to do is say update server copy. It'll push my changes, and then the user who's referencing it can say refresh local. And it pulls down in either delta, the change in the reference file. So when you are collaborating with someone, just periodically push your change up and pull down changes if you're referencing something someone else is doing. And it will keep you guys synchronized. You can also check it in and check it back out, and it does the same thing. We can set that to automatically do it as well. So every 10 minutes, it automatically updates your references and pushes the deltas up. But most people, when I do that, they don't like it, okay? Because what will happen is you're drawing along here, you're working, and every 10 minutes, your cursor locks up. And you're wondering what the heck that was. Well, that's locking the system, updating the references, and then releasing it. So it's very irritating when you're trying to get something done. So most people don't want it set up automatically. But we can do that if that's something you want to make sure, okay? We can automate all of that. So again, everything, if I did a file new, this is the ProjectWise new, I can pick my seed file. So if I pick seed file, it lets me browse, and all of your seed file standards are in ProjectWise. We just don't have them managed yet. So under standards, workspace, there's all of the seed files and cell libraries and everything that's in the VDOT standards. So I go to seed, US survey foot, pick that one. That's my seed file. Change my name. And hit OK. So it'll basically check in this file and open up the new file with the new seed file. That's how you're probably going to create new files in microstation. Okay. You can also grab the seed file from outside. So when I do a new, if I want to go outside, I just say import, and I browse to the project folder where the seed file is out here. Everybody should have this, typically, US survey foot, and there it is. Grab it from outside, either way. Once we're fully managed, you probably want to stay inside ProjectWise, okay? So everything, same thing with raster manager, all wants to go to ProjectWise. We add those two commands, but we also add some other stuff. Now, this is going to be new. Let me open up this drawing I have at my root here. Title block. So the way VDOT does their title blocks is it's just a piece of text. They're not using data fields. They're not using tags. It's just a piece of text. Well, we're going to be changing that a little bit. So now we're going to actually have what we call tags. So if I double click on this, it's going to show me the tag set. and I can actually edit it here. Now, they're going to encourage you not to use the editing of tags. So if I change this to Bob and hit OK, it changed it here. But if I close this file and check it in and check it back out, it's going to be back to Bobby because ProjectWise controls this. So if I do it through the tags, I want to make sure that I do title block update DMS and push that change up to ProjectWise. What that did is it pushed before I check in. So they don't want you to do that because they're afraid that people are going to forget to do that. So they want you to use ProjectWise to control that. So if I go out here, and here's the border, I can go to the attributes, and depending on what I'm displaying here, it's actually in the more attributes right here. So this one's set to Bob, and now Bobby. I also have it in the title block interface. So if I change my interface, it's right there. So let's switch that back to Bobby. Or actually, let's switch them all to Bob. Save it, and close it. So now I've changed that, but since I'm in the drawing, I don't see those changes right away. So I have another key and command, title block, update, now. And that pulls in the change while I'm in it. So if I'm impatient, can't wait till I check it in and check it out, I can dynamically pull it in with that command. Those are going to be added to the managed workspace. So there'll be a pull down that says title block tools, basically. And you'll be able to do that. Now, the way that they either want you to do it in ProjectWise, or you can use also this command, title block modify, and that brings up the ProjectWise properties dialog box. And so I could switch this back to Bobby, and this will actually switch it in both locations. So it'll actually change it in ProjectWise and change it in my border. So now I don't even have to go into microstation to populate my title block. I can do it outside ProjectWise, and the next time I go in, I can just double check it. So you can see they're all switched back to Bobby. Okay, so that's what we call title block integration. In Word and Excel, we call it attribute exchange. So we can do it in Word, Excel, microstation, and AutoCAD. So that's my title block. We will be adding those as a pull down into their customization. They just haven't done that yet. But there's only those key and commands you have to worry about. Let's make sure we covered everything here. Talked about referencing. Let's see. Checking in the documents. One thing that I didn't talk about is what we call selective set open. When you check out a microstation file, it does not check out the references by default, okay? But you can do that if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and close this microstation file. Go ahead and check it in. Under design, that cover sheet now has a reference, remember, because I fixed that one reference. When I go to check this out, when I open it up, it basically only checks that out. It does not check out the references. So by default behavior, that's typically, now outside organizations, you may have it set up already to actually check out the references. So that's just a user setting. But in VDOT, you may, I believe we have this turned off for you guys right now, but if you want to have the option to check out the references, that's just a user setting. So we go to ProjectWise and we go to Tools, Options, Settings. Under the interface, there's a Show Select Reference Document dialog. You guys should be able to turn that on, hit Apply, and then now when I open up a document, let's close this one and reopen it. It'll prompt me. Do you also want to copy out the references or check it out? Just gives you an option to check out the references at the same time. That's all that is. Okay? So you do have you can check out the references at the same time if you give yourself that option. I don't like that option personally, but that's my personal preference. So I normally have it turned off. And I turn it off. I don't have to worry about it. If I want a reference, I will check it out. But that's really up to you, depending on what your personal preference is. Okay. Let's look at Office. So next is Microsoft Office. So let's take a look at Microsoft Office. So let me save that. Close it for a second. I just want to double check something real quick. Okay, good. I'm going to open up Word from my taskbar here, and I'm just open up a blank document. So Office, if you see the ProjectWise ribbon bar, that means you have the advanced integration. You are required to have Office 2013 or 2016. So what's unfortunate is your VDOT folks, most of you still have 2010. Some of you may have 2016, and you actually already have it available to you. It's in your portal, and I think it's LandDesk portal basically. 2016 is available for installation, and you can install it. And if you do that, you want to make sure ProjectWise gets installed after, and you also, if it got installed beforehand, you want to make sure you open up a service ticket and they repair ProjectWise so that it is integrated with ProjectWise. Okay, the Office. They've known about that for almost a year that you guys were going to need it, and CAD support was told it would be pushed out. The package was pushed out, but they didn't force the install. So they didn't make you guys, they're only putting it on new machines. So you can install that. So I would suggest if you want this integration, you want to install it. Outside consultants, again, if you're still using 2010, you're not going to have advanced integration. You will be able to browse to a file and double click on it, and it'll check it out, and you can modify it and check it back in. But you won't see any advanced integration with the Connect Edition. If you're using an older version, you may have advanced integration with Office 2010. We discontinued that support of 2010 basically when Microsoft discontinued support with 2010 Office. Now you notice most of these are grayed out because I'm not in ProjectWise right now. I can actually disable the integration if I don't want to see it, so that I don't see any of the ProjectWise menus when I'm outside. When I'm inside, I can't disable. I can insert pictures, but the first time I go in, it wants me to log in. So let me open up. So I can go to so if I want to open up outside, I just go to Browse. If I want to open up from ProjectWise, I go to ProjectWise and hit Browse. And the very first time, when you have the integrated 2016, it'll want you to pick a data source, and it'll want you to log in. For the VDOT folks, you're only going to typically have one data source. So I would go ahead and there'll be two buttons at the bottom. It'll say single sign-on. I don't see that because I'm not on your domain right now. And then remember me. Go ahead and toggle both of those and hit login, and it'll just log you in with your Windows credentials. Since I'm off the domain right now, I have to log in. But I can say remember me so it doesn't prompt me to do this all the time. If you're an outside consultant and you're working in multiple ProjectWise data sources, you may not want to do that because you may want to do it periodically depending on if you're working on VDOT for the next couple of months, you can do it. But if you're bouncing in and out of multiple data sources, you don't always want it logging into VDOT. So you may not want to tell it to remember you. Hit login, and it's going to save those credentials in my registry so that it knows about it. And any other Office product I use, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, it'll remember those credentials. Okay, I won't have to do it again for the other products. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that drainage file. And so now I'm in ProjectWise, and now the rest of these light up. This one's not lighting up because it's something going on my machine. You should have these, and these are what we call the attribute exchange, kind of like title block integration. My machine, I have like 10 different versions, and I'm having a DLL issue. I think it's a security issue. It's not allowing that particular macro to run. But I can see my properties. I can see my custom interfaces, my more attributes, my Windows file, and my audit history without being in ProjectWise, because this is an integrated session of Word in ProjectWise. So it lets me see, and it lets me change the attributes. And if I'm using Attribute Exchange, I can change the attributes right here and just say update document, and it pulls in the attributes. If I check it in and check it back out, it also updates it. Okay, and I can show you real quick. So if I do an open, go to a different document I have out there. So this document that I had open, these attributes are actually coming from the project definition. So out in ProjectWise, this project right here has those attributes set: route number, UPC number, with the city county name. Those are all being synchronized into this document from the project. If I change those, I can hit update document and it changes it here. Or I can check it in, check it out, and it changes it. So we can synchronize those attributes into a Word document as well. Say this was a correspondence or a letter that I want to use on another project. I could copy it over to the other project and just say update document, and it pulls in the new route, county, project, and UPC information. So it starts to write the content for me. Something you can't do in Falcon and Windows Explorer. So we're starting to automate your process of your content as well. Okay, so pretty much the integration with Word is pretty simple. If I do a file new, I can pick a template, and then when I go to file, save the file, it wants to save it to ProjectWise. You pick ProjectWise and save it to ProjectWise. Okay. If I hit cancel, that means cancel in the Word integration. If I really want to do a save as or a save, and I want to go outside, I just hit the browse and go outside. So it's not as invasive. MicroStation, everything's integrated. With Word, it's only integrated if you pick ProjectWise. Okay, it actually used to be a little bit different. You notice I can go to OneDrive, SharePoint, my PC, or browse, or I can add a place. So it's a lot different. The Office integration is a lot different. It's not as invasive. It doesn't intercept everything. It only intercepts what you tell it to. Okay. Every application you open, when you close it, it's going to prompt you to check in if it's been saved into ProjectWise. Okay. Check it in. Now Excel, literally exactly the same. The only difference I'll see is that when I open up a file, it's going to remember those credentials from Word if I told it to remember me. Okay, so it's not going to ask me to do that again. And then I can go ahead and browse in, and it usually takes you to the last place you left off. Got the same ribbon bar. I can see my properties, insert pictures, insert objects, and if you have make sure that you enable macros, and that way it won't be grayed out. And so you can do attribute exchange with Excel as well. Close it, and it'll ask me to check it in. PowerPoint, already saw that. PowerPoint pretty much the same way. I'm in an unintegrated session right now though, so I didn't integrate my PowerPoint, or I'd see a ProjectWise ribbon bar there. And it would work the same way, except it doesn't have attribute exchange. PowerPoint does not have attribute exchange. Only Word and Excel do. In Outlook, you notice that we have a view called email. You'll see that I have some emails in here. and I can sort by the sent, the from, the to. Let's look at some more emails. MSG. So I have an email view, so I can see the from, the to, the sent, the subject. But I can now search into the content. So I'm looking for my name, and maybe I'm looking for my name with the letters ICS. Nope, nothing in there with ICS. Okay, thought I had done that. But anyways, I can do a keyword search into the content, and I can sort just like my emails. Now, this does require you using Outlook. So the VDOT folks that are not using it, make sure if you're not sure how to do it, there is a job aid, but link your Gmail account to your Outlook. They're not taking away your Outlook client on your desktop. But I would suggest before you do that, make sure you're in Office 2016. So we have integration with Outlook several different ways. We can actually open up Outlook, and I could actually take an email, highlight all the emails here, and drag them in right into ProjectWise. And in the background, it's indexing them. And you got to give it a few minutes, and then it'll add the from, the to, the sent, and the subject. Those are Windows file properties, and it's pulling those. It's going to index those, and it's going to index the email, so I can do a keyword search into the email. Just by dragging and dropping. Outlook here, I have a ribbon bar, so I can actually export that email one by one. I can export the attachments. If I author a new email, I can attach from ProjectWise, or attach a URL, or save my attachments or this email to ProjectWise through Outlook, if you're using Outlook. Now, in ProjectWise, I can also email here. So I want to send these 3 emails. I can right-click and say send to mail recipient, or as a link or as attachment, and it'll open up Outlook with those as attachments, and then I can send it to whoever I want. If I want to add some additional ones, go here and attach. Okay. Now those links only work in Outlook. Okay. So if you want to use, remember, we're going to be at, this doesn't exist yet, but I'm going to be working with the CAD support people to add this tool for Gmail. If you want to still use Gmail, you can say copy Gmail link to clipboard. Then you can author a new email, and you can paste those links into there. Okay. You always want to send links if you can. Okay. So and that link can be put in Word or anything as well. But those links will work through Gmail. Okay. And the link will just log into ProjectWise and take you straight to the document. You don't have that, just make a note that you don't have this installed yet, though. This is something new that I need to work with them to get it as part of your package, because this is a custom tool that did not exist. We just found out that you guys are going to Gmail. Outside consultants, you're using Outlook, you don't have to worry about it, okay? Any questions about oh, hold on, there's a couple chats here. Okay, that's just the names. Okay, good. So any questions about the Office integration or microstation integration? Nothing? Sure we got everybody. Okay. So let's move on. So we're on the downward spiral here. We'll hopefully get you guys out here a little bit early before lunch. We're going to talk about some of the web stuff. Now, the web client is available to anybody who has a username and password. Don't forget, if you're an external user, you have to put in those requests from the CAD support page on the ProjectWise sub support page. You want to make sure you fill those out and request access to the corresponding projects you're working on. And they will issue you a username and password. and give you the appropriate information. So IPM is something that internal users, and we have a handful of internal users on the call that internal users use. So I don't have access to those right now, but I will show you the job aids, and we'll talk about it briefly. Web Explorer we'll be able to get to from anywhere. Okay, CAB is for outside contractors who upload and download data. We're going to look at that and the changes there. Internally, we're also going to look at multi-print for the internal users. External users won't have a copy of the multi-print tool because it's specifically designed for the internal printing devices and plotting devices. ICS is something that's going to be available to both inside and outside. Okay, and so we'll talk about these. So let's dive in here. These are all custom. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to log into the production data source. We've been in the test data source most of the day here. And I'm going to show you where these job aids are. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm just going to log in as the administrator. And once you have access to the data source, all your internal folks, should have access right away. The external, you'll have to make sure you put in a request. You'll have a standards folder. Underneath that standards, you'll have documentation, ProjectWise documentation. Here are all the PDFs that I've been referencing today. So you'll want to probably download those. And here's the ProjectWise Explorer one we did this morning. Here's the searching one. Here's the microstation. And each one of them has a workbook as well. That has a series of exercises, basically what I demonstrated. So if you want to follow up and do some practice exercises, you can take a look at those and review those exercises and just use them as reference in teaching tools. Okay. We skipped sections 2 and 3 because we were trying to fit this into 4 hours rather than 8 hours. But you can actually look at those and use those as reference if you're going to be using any workflows or anything like that. The job aids are here in the job aids folder. First one we're going to look at is IPM, open read only. Now IPM, we're not changing the standard IPM interface necessarily, but what you would do is go in there, search for your UPC or your UPC number, and then you would go to Project Documents, and you would, if it's in ProjectWise, you'll see the ProjectWise Documents button. And when you pick that, it'll offer you a choice to either go to the web client or the thick client, the ProjectWise Explorer client. Okay, and when you do that, it will take you automatically to the IPM search in either the web client or the thick client. Okay, and this is a 6-page. If you're going into the thick client, it'll prompt you to create the working directory, and then it'll take you down to the IPM search for that project. Okay, and then you can use the multi-print tool to print those. And this is just going over that process. You can preview them as well. Okay, so reference this job aid. So let's just take a quick look at that. So I can't get to the IPM website because it's only an internal website, but let's pretend that we went there and it's coming to here, and then it takes me to the IPM search. So it takes me down to this search, and it shows me the PDFs that are available for that UPC. Okay. Then I can come in here and I can right-click, and I can do the multi-print. So that's in my right-click menu, and that's going to bring up the multi-print tool. Now, when you're inside the domain, you'll be able to see all the districts here, and when you pick a district, you'll see all the printers that are available in that district. You can use this to move files up and down and put it in the order. So order the files you want, how many sets I want, and it knows how to stack them properly. So depending on the printing device, it will stack it from bottom up, and it will actually sort them so that they're not one after the other, but they're in sets. If I want full size, I leave this alone. If I want half size, I toggle half size. So again, I use this to move things up and down, all the way to the front, all the way to the end. If I want half size, I toggle half size, and if I want 2 or 3 sets, I put whatever number of sets I want. Okay, this is the multi-print tool. This tool can be used at any time in project. You don't have to go through IPM site to do it. I can go to any PDFs that I have in a project. Right? I can just go to the current drawings, and grab these and run, right-click, and go to VDOT multi-print. Okay, so I don't have to go through IPM. Matter of fact, I don't even have to go to the IPM website. If all I'm looking for are the current IPM drawings for a particular UPC, I can just go down to the IPM searches and look for my UPC and pick it. Okay, so I don't have to go to the web page to get to that. But we still have integration with the web page. But the printing tools are not in the web page anymore. They're inside ProjectWise Explorer for the multi-print. Okay? So that's more for the internal folks, not for the external folks. Now, CAB is a little different. So let's take a look at that. So I have access to CAB right here. This is for the outside users. So I can go in here and let's go to CAB. This is external. Let's grab this number here. This is still the same as what external contractors use now. I can search for any of these categories. I'm going to use UPC here, paste, and I'm going to hit search. Now what you're going to find out in ProjectWise is that I have more searching capabilities than I ever had before. This is going to take me to the web client. So I found my project down here, and I hit ePlans. And it's going to prompt me to log into ProjectWise Web. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. Once you have a COV domain account, when you log in through the web client or any mobile device, you need to put the COV in front. So it's going to be COV / then your username, then your password. There is no single sign-on for this web client because it's always assuming you're coming from outside the domain. And I'm logged in, and it took me straight to that CAB search for those sets. So I want to download the microstation files. I can toggle that and say download. Now, depending on what client I'm using will depend on what capabilities I have. Okay? If I want full bulk upload and download, I need Internet Explorer. I just went into Chrome, so I can only grab individual files out here. Okay, so if I went into the set, hit the set, so I can use the web client through any of those clients. Okay, but I can only download one file at a time. Okay, see how it grayed out? If I want full-blown bulk upload and download, I want to use Internet Explorer. Okay, so let's do that for a second. So let me go back to here. Sure. Let's open up that same URL, but in Internet Explorer. So I did that because I want to point that out. That it will depend on what browser you're using, what capabilities you have. Run a search. Go to the ePlans. Log in. Now, when I toggle this time, I have download. I also have checkout. So Internet Explorer can check out and download everything in bulk. So let's go ahead and let's download this. Now there's hundreds of microstation files in here. So let's see how long that takes. So it lets me browse to my local C drive, and I created an export folder. VDOT, and then I have a CAD folder. Hit OK. And so it's going to export out all of those DGNs. Okay, there's hundreds of them in there, and it's actually only going to take about a minute. Okay, this web client, it works in Chrome, Safari, Firefox, any mobile device. So I can, on my iPhone, I can call up the same one, but I may not be able to bulk download. If I have a viewer on that mobile device, I will be able to view the content. If I'm using Internet Explorer on like a Microsoft tablet, I can check in and check out. But it does require Internet Explorer 8, 9, 10, or 11. It does not work with Internet Explorer Edge. Internet Explorer Edge will act like Chrome. So, but in Chrome, again, I can search, I can find my data, I can view my data. If I'm using our iPad mobile applications, ProjectWise Edge or ProjectWise Worksite, I can check out and modify if I have the application and check it back in. So this web tool, as soon as you have a username and password, you'll be able to log in, and you'll be able to get to the content you've been granted permission. Now, that took a little bit over a minute, but out here in that export location, it downloaded, I already had some PDFs there, but it downloaded all those DGNs. Can you do that fast and so? I don't think you can, actually. It's not that quick. And again, I'm in a basement office in Michigan. If I open this up, I can download individual ones if I want. We actually can right-click and mark up and view content. Now, this markup is going to give me an error. It's something I got to work out with them, but it actually will deliver a markup tool. It's the URLs being blocked on their web server. That's the only thing we're having a problem with. But anyways, remember that navigator tool in ProjectWise Explorer? It will deliver that same navigator tool, but with markup tools. You can measure distances and areas with this one. You can actually pan, zoom in and out. You can print or plot to a system plotter, and you can create markups and then save the markups, and they'll save it right next to. And this is, you have to have Internet Explorer to do markups. Chrome and Safari won't do the markup tool. Only Internet Explorer will. And if you're using Internet Explorer and you want right-click checkout capabilities, if I have the native application, I can check it out, modify it, and check it back in. If you want that, you need Internet Explorer, and if you want to make sure that you go to your Internet options, security, make sure that it's a trusted site. So right there, make sure it's a trusted site. It's just projectwise.vdot.virginia.gov. So you don't have to go through CAB to get to that. Just put in https projectwise.vdot.virginia.gov. See if I put that in here. Right here. This one here. Okay? If you want to write that down. That web page on any mobile device, as long as you have a username and password, is going to get you into ProjectWise. And you'll be able to upload, download, depending on what browser you're using. Okay? Even with Chrome and Safari, you'll be able to upload individual files. You'll be able to download individual files. You'll be able to search and view individual files. But you won't necessarily have, certain things are still ActiveX control with this particular client. You'll also want to make sure you turn off your pop-up blockers, because that'll stop the ActiveX control sometimes. And if you're using Internet Explorer, you want to go to compatibility view settings and also add virginia.gov as a trusted site. That's only in IE 11. 8, 9, and 10, you don't need that. Okay. Now, I don't want to mess around. This is actually production data, so I don't want to mess with it. So I'm going to go to our test one. And that is projectwise.uat.vdotvirginia.gov. Okay, so we can do quick searches up here. So remember that search I did with the word site? I could do star, site, star, and run a search. So you can do quick searches, advanced searches, the searches I created earlier. So notice that it found all those, and you got to scroll because it'll find all of them, and it'll actually show everything, and it'll have like 1, 2, 3. So you have to. So it's a little bit harder. But again, it's going through the internet. So my saved searches that I created earlier, remember those? The VDOT one, and I found the City County 07. It can run that search. So if I create it, and you can see down here, I can hit the last two. So it lets me browse. I can actually minimize that, maximize it. With this tool, I can bulk upload, bulk download if I'm using Internet Explorer. So if I go to training, go to my remote session, I'll see the project properties, but I can right click and open or check out. If I open and I have the document, I can actually modify it, save it, check it back in. But this is kind of more manual. It doesn't prompt me to check in, so I have to right click and manually check it in through the web client. Add a comment if I want. So you can see I can actually copy links, ProjectWise links, web links, and specific links. Those links won't work in Gmail. You have to use that Gmail tool that I'm going to be giving them to create the Gmail links. I can change workflow states, set final status, look at the properties, just like I did in the properties. I can see all the standard properties related to the document, any custom attributes related to the document. If it's reference files, it'll show me reference files and the audit trail. If you're editing microstation content, though, I would highly suggest you don't do that through the web client because it doesn't honor the references. If I attached a new reference, it wouldn't know how to track that through the web client. It only knows how to do that through ProjectWise Explorer. Okay, but if all I was doing was making some minor changes, text changes, I could, and I had microstation on the machine, go ahead and open it up, modify it, check it back in. It's from any Internet Explorer web browser. If I wanted just basic functionality, like I said, I can go to Chrome and I can actually download the individual files. I can run the same quick searches. I can run the advanced searches, except it doesn't let me bulk download, okay? And there is no checkout, but it will let me find it. It will let me view it, right? So if I went into a project, let's see if we can find one. Go to this one and do start. This is live data, so I want to be careful. So I found all the PDFs in that one project. So I can go ahead and view it, and this is in Chrome. So I can, as long as I have a PDF viewer, I can view the content. I can print the content one by one, but I just can't bulk download unless I'm using Internet Explorer. I can download one at a time. If I'm using our mobile apps, ProjectWise Edge, ProjectWise Worksite on my iPad or Android tablet, I can bulk download. Okay, I can export as well. I can create new versions so I can see the properties. So it just depends on what browser you're using. If I want full-blown capabilities, Internet Explorer, then I can do everything. Okay. I can also upload and download. So I can create a new folder, upload a folder, upload, and in Chrome, in Firefox, and Safari, you can also upload one document at a time, not the whole not the whole folder. So you want to use Internet Explorer for bulk uploading and downloading. Or you just want to use ProjectWise Explorer, depending on. Web Explorer is really for a more casual user. And you don't have to go through CAB or IPM to get to the Web Explorer. You can just put in projectwise.vdot.virginia.gov, okay? And as long as you have a username and password, you can get to it through the web browser on any device that has internet access. So the accessibility of your data is tenfold. And when I create a document, it's immediately available in ProjectWise Explorer, okay? Go back to here. So we talked about IPM, talked about ProjectWise Explorer, Web Explorer. I'm doing a 2-hour afternoon session, and they're actually been about an hour and 15 to an hour and a half, where I go in a little more detail in the Web Explorer, but that's for the contractors that they're only using the Web Explorer. Most of you, my understanding was that you'll be using ProjectWise Explorer most of the time. So we don't go into the Web Explorers much. CAB, we looked at CAB, we looked at the multi-print. So last thing we got to look at is ICS, and then you guys can go to lunch. So iModel Composition Server, really, really neat tool that's going to automate quite a bit. So let me close a few things here. So currently, when you submit your current drawings or your planned file room drawings, you have to go through this internally, and I think even externally. You have to go through a process. You have to open a service ticket, and you have to have the CAD group put it in a certain area, whether it be through the Falcon Web, but depending on where it's going, they have to move and put it in a certain folder or different data source location. We're consolidating everything in ProjectWise. So in ProjectWise, rather than you go into microstation and create a PDF for each DGN or use Print Organizer and create a PSET and then create all your PDFs through Print Organizer, you don't even have to open microstation anymore. In there, you have to make sure you name all the files right, and you have to set that up. Well, in ProjectWise now, you're going to be able to go, and you're going to want to make sure that you follow a certain standard. So there's 3 job aids associated to what we call ICS, or iModel Composition Server. And there's a certain set of properties that you want to make sure are set on the project. So Bridge has a different set of properties, cross-section has a different set, and then the main PDF one does. You want to make sure that these attributes are set on your project. Bridge is slightly different set of attributes. If those are set and you have the right closed shape in your border, you want to make sure, because it needs to know what to find. Any historical projects, you're going to have to add that border. The border has been added to the cell libraries already. If you're in Bridge cell library, the border is called BORD, B-O-R-D. If you're in the design, the sheet 2015 cell, it is called Design Plan Sheet Plot Bow. Okay, and it's just a closed rectangle with a dashed line. Their current border had an open-ended, just a line string. Now this has a closed shape. Okay, so if you want to use it on any current projects, you need to add that shape. Okay, so that this routine knows how to find. So you have to add one for each sheet you want to create a PDF for. Once you've done that and you've set the properties, you're good to go. So I'm going to go into this project here that was put in Nova, and I know that 3 of these documents have the closed border in it, and they are sheet 3, 3A, and 3B. Okay, so instead of opening up MicroStation, all I have to do is right-click, say Create Rendition, pick my profile, and hit Submit. Okay, so I'm doing current drawings, and that's going to send me an email when it's done. Now let's do Plan File Room at the same time. Create Rendition, I want this to go to the plan file room, and hit submit. If I expand this, it shows me what format, what naming convention it's using, what destination. Hit submit. I don't have to pick any of those though. If I want to do bridge plan file room, I pick the bridge because they have slightly different pen tables and color tables. So go to current drawings or plan file room for bridge. We'll be adding additional profiles. They only wanted to address the plan file room and current drawings right now, but no longer do you have to open up a ticket with CAD support. No longer do you have to open up microstation. All you have to do is make sure you have that closed shape. Any new borders already have that closed shape. So any new projects will have the closed shape in the cell, in the border. But any existing ones, you'll have to make sure you add that if you want to take advantage of this. And in the background, I'm going to get an email. And then let's go up. I know that the one job is going to go here. And let's switch this to the default. And so we'll just wait, and we'll see those come in, and then the dates will be 4/27. There we go, right there. Top three, 4/27 at 11:34. And if I go to my email, there's the first one. It took 55 seconds. Created 4 PDFs out of the 3 drawings. I have a hyperlink to the original and a hyperlink to the PDF. If I pick that, hit yes. Now that hyperlink doesn't work in Gmail. It only works in Outlook. It takes me to the PDF. I open it up. There's my 23 by 35. The right pen table, color, style. We've had a couple things we've had to tweak and modify. But I think we've got most of them. We may still run into some of the districts have special pen tables that they're using that we didn't know about, so we'll have to address those. But right now, that's a heck of a lot easier than what you have to do. Okay, and I didn't have to open up a service ticket. Now that one that I picked was actually the plan file room. I didn't pick the other one, but you notice it put it under road plans, the right district, name the folder properly, and name the PDF properly. If I go to my other email, so that one beat the other one. So for some reason, the first one was taking a little bit longer. It took a little bit longer. It took about a minute. Again, I can take that, hit yes, and it'll take me to the current drawings. Same concept. Okay. Anybody tell me that you can do that faster? I doubt it. And both external and internal will be, I'm external right now, and I just submitted my PDFs to current drawings just by clicking them and saying current drawings. Okay, now we could have grouped them all together in a set. Remember I showed you that earlier, where I could have created a set of the ones that I wanted to submit. Right, I could right click, create a set, and then just right click the set and submit them to rendition. I don't think I have a set in here right now. Yeah, right here. So I could right-click this set and say create rendition, and it would create it if all of the drawings were in that set. Not sure what's in this set. Let's see. Nope. Yeah, some of them are, but these ones are not going to come out right. Those two, because they don't have the closed border in it. The other ones will. So I could actually right-click and say create rendition. Current drawings, hit submit. Voila. Very neat, very quick, and we've just streamlined a process that takes a long time. I think I asked one district, I said if I had a 100-sheet set and I needed to create the PDFs for the current drawings, how long would that take you? And they said it'd take them at least a day. I can do it in about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. So we're saving you time, hopefully saving you money. Okay. So that's the ICS. Take a look at the, make sure that you download the job aids for all of these, for the IPM, CAB, and the multi-print and IPM are mostly for the internal users, but CAB and the ICS, make sure you, once you get into ProjectWise, that you can get to that. For some reason you can't get to it, just let us know, open up a tech support call. Make sure all support issues for ProjectWise go to CAD support at VDOT.virginia.gov, not for the internal user, not VITA, because they're not supporting ProjectWise, just the back-end infrastructure. There's my email. Been a pleasure talking with you. Again, if you were, I did not see, okay, so we do have Curtis Boyd. So Barton is Curtis, but there was if there was some letter acronyms for some folks, RK and K. I'm not sure who that is, so you may not get credit for this class if you don't put your name into the chat window for me. I'd greatly appreciate that. And I can make sure I add you to the list. But other than that, have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy your lunch. If you have any questions, I'll sit here for a little while. And you can add them to the chat window or turn your microphone on, and we can answer your questions.